although it is 4% lower than the state's 61%. We have an increase of 3% in warning. The state remained the same at 9% as they had been in 2011. We have combined needs improvement and warning for the state, which remained the same in both years, 39%, while Abington Public Schools improved by 7%, going from 50% to 43%, although it is lower than the state by 4%. And we also can see here the question type. We have multiple choice, 77% for the district and 79% for the state. Not a large difference, really. Open response, 52 to 53 for the state, and short response, 61 to 67, a little bit larger span there. In grade 4, the overall proficiency rate of 47% for Abington as a 4% decline. It's 10% lower than the state. Is it? Oh, did it not?
Where do you want to go back?
Oh, sorry.
It's there.
Okay, we're good? Thank you. All right, overall proficiency rate of, well, it should be on English Language Arts for grade 4.
So can you go back?
Yes, I can do it from here. Grade 4 ELA, overall proficiency rate of 47% with a 4% decline, 10% lower than the state's, 57%. Combined needs improvement and warning is 53%. The state is 44% with a difference of 9%. We have an increase of 7% in warning. State increased 2% from the year before. We're both at 14%. Decrease of 4% in needs improvement and a decrease of 5% in that in the state. Going to the multiple choice, 78 for the district, 79 for the state, and 47 for both for open response. So pretty much on par with the state in those two question types. Okay. Mathematics for grade 3. Overall proficiency rate of 55%, which is improved by 10%, but is 6% lower than the state. A combined needs improvement and warning is 44%. The state is 39%, with a difference of 5% there. An increase of 3% in warning. The state increased by 4%. With a decrease of 13% in needs improvement, the state stayed the same as the year before. Question type, multiple choice, 79 for Abington, 80% for the state. Open response, 56% compared to the state's 63%. Short answer, 68% compared to the state's 69%. You can see that many of these are very close to the state percentages. Going on to the mathematics for grade 4, overall proficiency rate is 48%, improved by 5%. It's going from 43 to 48% from 2011 to 2012. The state's at 51% and improved by 4%. The overall warning and needs improvement rate is 52%, improved by 5%, going from 57% to 52%. And the state is at 48%. It's better to be lower, obviously, in the warning and needs improvement areas. For question type, 69% compared to the state's 70%. Open response, 64% compared to the state's 65%. And short answer, 72% for both. To let you know what kinds of interventions we have in place in regard to improving student achievement. One thing that we have done this year is we have already put in place a test called the GMRT, the Gates McGinnity Reading Test for grade 2. The reasoning behind this is to give our second graders a chance at learning how to take a more standardized test for a longer period of time that has very similar kinds of questions that MCAS would have, although it is just multiple choice at this point. We give that test, well, we gave that test this fall. We will be giving the test again in January and then again in the spring, and then there'll be a comparison of results. Also, they will be using, with data analysis, will be using the information to prescribe learning, to form flexible groups for response to intervention, and we're hoping that giving them that practice is going to make a difference on next year's third grade results. Another thing that we've done this year at Beaver Brook Elementary School is we have upped the number of times for math RTI. That was done by changing schedules around, a little bit different than the way we had done it last year, where everyone had 2 math RTI periods, response to intervention. So now students are getting together in smaller groups more often during the week for math intervention help. And let's see, we also have data team members who were trained actually in the last school year, but they now are training the staff in data analysis. We've been working on that in service time, in staff meeting time, and also in common planning time. Also, the the item analysis that's being used is as part of that data training is a little bit different than the item analysis that was done before. It's more in-depth, and it's giving all of the staff a better indication of how to go about data analysis to, again, help you figure out what was wrong, what happened that went wrong for the students, and how to improve those skill areas. Our common planning time, which we did start last year, we have continued this year. And but we did start it a little bit earlier. Last year took a little bit of time to kind of figure out how it was going to be scheduled and how it would fit in with the rest of the day. We kind of learned from last year and then put it in place this year right away, starting at the beginning of the year. So that means that grade level educators are getting together, and everyone on a 4th grade team, say 3rd or 2nd or 1st, has their own day that they get together for common planning time, and are able to not only look at data from MCAS, but they can look at data from benchmark testing, DIBELS, Maze, ORF. They can also talk about enrichment programs, whatever is the most important thing that needs to be discussed as a grade level to keep things uniform and to make sure that we're doing the best we can for the students. We have also made some changes in writing benchmarks in order to try to address our open response questions. As far as the writing benchmarks, last year we were given information through the Department of Ed on how to proceed for MCAS that would be coming up, and the information changed. So fortunately, even though our summer curriculum work had used that information that was originally given, we then were able to tweak it once the school year got going. But the summer curriculum work actually helped us with pacing and getting the skills in the proper order. Then when we got the new information, we tweaked it and we were ready to go. So everything was kind of in place, so to speak, so the change didn't cause as big a stir as it might have had we not been prepared. We have, let's see, teachers looking at varied writing samples of students, trying to discern what makes a student writing be at this lower level or medium level or higher level, again, to help improve the writing skills, and to make sure, again, that we have uniformity within the classrooms of the grading. We have success plans written for students in grade 4. That's really nothing new. We're targeting still students in the warning areas and students in the lower end of needs improvement. Our other students are also given opportunities for intervention, though, and some of these students as well, through response to intervention on whatever level of math or reading that they need the help. We also have new 21st century learning skills, and we've been fortunate enough to, through mostly through donations, PTO, Abington Education Foundation, sometimes generous other donors, anonymous donors. We've been able to add things like interactive whiteboards and iPads, and we are using those types of technology, automated response systems, almost forgot that one, and we're using those to, again, motivate students for learning, but also use more visually and auditorily stimulating kinds of equipment that will help students to focus more and be able to retain information. So if you have any questions,
I have a question,
Yes.
actually, two questions. You talked about the support that we're offering the students in the school. Are we still offering, or we had at other buildings now, I'm not sure when they're done, after-school help?
I did mean to mention that one as well, yes. That will start for English Language Arts at the end of January, and then just prior to backing up to the Math MCAS, we will have that as well. Mhm.
And that's students in what area? Both the needs improvement and the warning are invited?
It will depend. If students are already on individualized education plans, it's being addressed through their goals during the school day. So these would be students who do not have that type of plan, and so they need something extra more than just the regular RTI, response to intervention, that they would get during the school day.
And you mentioned also a success plan when you were speaking about the fourth graders. Can you elaborate on that? What is?
Mm-hmm. A success plan is basically a plan put in place to, really it alerts parents that students are getting extra interventions at school, but that it's more than just the school. We like to try to include parents and give them resources so that they also are able to do things with their students that will focus them in the directions that need to be remediated. And that way, too, it opens up communication when maybe there might not necessarily be that opportunity.
And is that, oh, sorry, Tom. Is that only for the fourth graders?
The success plans are because our fourth graders, remember, were our third graders last year.
Right.
So they would be the only ones in the building who've taken the MCAS and have results.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to clarify, when was this testing occurred? Did it happen first half of this year, and the results came out
The
just
MCAS, you mean the
recently?
MCAS
Yes.
testing? That was done in the fall. I mean, I'm sorry, in the spring. Basically,
spring. So
right, so
basically-
this fourth grade that you see here, what says fourth grade, they are actually at Woodsdale School in fifth grade, and our third graders
Okay.
are with us as
So
fourth
we're
graders.
a year behind, basically, when we evaluate and then implement changes.
To a degree, I wouldn't say a whole year,
Yeah,
but.
well, that's what I mean, a
right.
school year.
School year,
I know we
yes.
take it first half of the year, then we get it
In the
basically
fall.
first half
Mhm.
of the following year.
The state doesn't get the data to us until the following school year across the state, until students are already in classrooms in Massachusetts. That's something that they need to improve as we look at the next assessment part.
Now, you mentioned, how we have kids on IEPs. What type of additional action do we take if they're remaining in those constant areas? I know, like Jeanette said, that, warning, is that definite? Anybody that's in warning is going to get this extra help no matter what? Is that a true statement, or?
No, as I said, if it would depend. If you're in warning and you already are on some type of a plan to get the extra help, then you would be getting the extra help through that plan.
Yep, you'd be getting it through the IEP. If there are
Right.
kids that are currently not on an IEP that are in warning status, do they automatically get additional assistance?
In most, yes, unless for some reason the parent can't provide the after-school transportation, or there's some other schedule conflict that would not allow the child to come to the class. Because it is after school, we can't require it.
If, I know we send out the,
So it's automatically
Okay.
offered to kids that are in warning. And so it's their option whether they take it or not.
all right, but other than the results itself that we get with the children, if they're in warning status, do we send a separate cover letter to those individuals, to the parents stating, what the severity of potential is if they're in failing status throughout the entire and will not get a degree or
Well,
a diploma?
All students.
different
this
levels.
is right. We're at the very beginning, and obviously we want all of our third graders and all of our fourth graders to reach proficiency, but it would be, I think, difficult to do that. We want the children to be at that level by the time they graduate, right? So some people get there quicker than others. It's a very developmental process.
But everybody's notified that
oh,
they're
but
in the
as far
warning
as
category, that
notification.
they have the potential of not graduating from high school with a Massachusetts, with the Massachusetts that they've passed.
Well, I know we get
state
the
test.
generic forms out to the parents.
State
whether you're in
provides that
state.
information
I'm
in your
just-
packet.
I haven't told one other thing I wanted to say.
Right.
They get the-
But all along the way, the state provides the information on the results.
Right, the
that kids get.
parents do get, every year, they get a handout that tells them this is what your
Okay, the
child
detailed
scored.
handout, but we don't send anything extra that's other than provided to the state.
If I could help, because this applies to both schools.
Sure.
When a student scores needs improvement or warning, low needs improvement or warning, that's when they're on the success plan. So there's a cover letter that goes home that indicates what their score was
Yeah.
and the steps that we're going to be taking, and then the
Okay.
teachers talk with the parents about that. In addition to that, those students then are placed into intervention groupings, small groups, so
Response
that
groups, yeah.
assistance is put in place for them as well.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure we're
Yep.
doing something extra than just notifying what the state scores are. You know, if we've identified those students, you know, make the parents aware of it, then I'm happy with that. Yeah.
On the success plan, it will state things like that they are having some extra help with the response to intervention, or that there will be some extra resources provided to them. It could be something online, it could be paper and pencil tasks, those kinds of things. There are a variety of things that we can do. And it's open as well. So if an educator comes up with an idea that's really made for that child, that can be put in there. It's not a static piece of paper that says you can only do one of these things.
My only concern is I've been on the board for 3 years now, and in the lower levels, needs improvement and warnings has been pretty stagnant. And, you know, I've brought to attention, Teresa, you know, Hull had some great score increases over the past year. And, you know, we need to reach out to some of these other school systems that are having success stories to try to resolve this problem.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because when I found out there was a list that was put out by Chester Mitchell regarding the schools that were considered blue ribbon schools, I sent that information to the staff, and we had a couple of teachers who actually went to the Orchard Garden School in Dorchester, and they came back with ideas and information about that, which then they had a presentation for our staff at one of the staff meetings to give them some of the ideas that they were using at that school. We also just, on Friday, the reading department had gone to the annual reading conference that's at Bridgewater State University, and we were given information on the writing that's coming down from the state now. It'll be called Writing Standards in Action. They've already posted the 5th grade ones. They're hoping to post 4 through 4 and 6 before the end of the year. So again, we were fortunate enough to be able to come back with PowerPoint presentations that they emailed to us. And I just today at a staff meeting said to staff, whether you're networking with other colleagues or whether you're going to conferences, it's a very common occurrence now that they'll say, would you like our PowerPoint? Or even if they don't, ask them, and then they give it to you. It's an easy thing. You bring it back. You use the parts of it at the staff meetings that would be helpful, or the ideas. We have another group that, because of that conference, are going out to Plainville. They haven't made the appointment yet, but they just made the networking connection at that conference, and they will be going out to Plainville to work on to find out what they're doing, working on reading.
Okay, thank you.
Just check and see if the clicker is back to working, and it is. So I'm here to present the English Language Arts, Math, and Science as well, English Language Arts and Math for grade 5 and 6, as well as Science for grade 5. For our 5th grade students, it's the first year that we're tested in science. So our first slide shows us English Language Arts MCAS results for grade 5. So last year we had an overall proficiency rate of 65%, which is actually a decrease of 8% from the year before, but 4% higher than the state as a whole. Our advanced within that category did go up by 6%. We had no change in our warning. while there was an increase of 2% in warning scores in the state, and we had an increase of 7% in needs improvement, while the state went up by 4% in that area. In terms of the question type, for multiple choice and open response, for multiple choice, we're static with the state, 77% versus 76. For open response, we're up about 3%. And I apologize, I just wanted to backtrack quickly before I went over this. I wanted to say, I've come before this board for a few years to present school improvement plans multiple times per year and MCAS reports. And that was due to the level that we were given by the state of Massachusetts. Woodsdale this year is considered a level 1 school, and a lot of that is tied to performance in our students' student growth percentiles. So I wanted just to recognize the staff at Woodsdale and the students for making that achievement. So we are considered to be in the top tier of schools.
Matt, before you go further, can you just elaborate a little more? I mean, I think it's important to know what that recognition now means for the Woodsdale, how much it's come to become a level 1.
Yeah, we've seen steady improvement over the past 3 years. And the old system of accountability really focused a lot on subgroups, and it was really the performance of individual subgroups was the accountability system. It was how you did in those subgroups, and any other factors were really just on the side. You know, you could make improvements. I came before you guys last year and presented an MCAS report that showed great improvement, but not enough to have us taken out of our subgroups. And in fact, last year was our first year in corrective action. What they've done this year is they've taken student growth percentiles into account. And as we've talked about over the past few years, there really has been no tracking of individual groups of students as they move from year to year. It's been grade levels. So this year's 5th grade compared to last year's 5th grade compared to the year before's 5th grade, but they're not the same students. The student growth percentiles allow us to gauge our success in helping those students achieve by measuring where they were and where they are as compared to other students in the state that were performing at the same level. So it's a very complex mathematical formula that they go through to decide whether you're level 1 or level 2. Basically, you have a what's called the Performance and Improvement Index. I want to make sure I get that right. It's the cumulative progress and performance index for the school and for all the subgroups that is the judge, and it has to be 75. So for Woodsdale, we were above 75 in all except for that students with special needs, students with disabilities. However, in that subgroup, over the past 3 years, the individual performance index has gone from 50 to 63 to 75. So cumulative over the 4 years that they measure, we haven't made 75, but individually last year we did. And that was enough to put us into level 1.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So that was English Language Arts grade 5. For English Language Arts grade 6, we had an overall proficiency rate of 68%, which again was down 4%, but 2% higher than the state. There was an increase of 1% in warning and an increase of 2% in the state in that category. An increase of 2% in needs improvement and a decrease of 1% in the state. And again, our advanced in that category was up 2% from the previous year. Our multiple choice and open response in this grade level and this subject were consistent with statewide performance. For our math for grade 5, our overall proficiency rate was 62%. Again, our advanced in that area decreased by 7%. We had an increase of 1% in warning. There was an increase of 2% in warning for the state, and we remained 4% below the state in student scoring in warning. There was a decrease of 2% in needs improvement, and needs improvement in the state was even. And the multiple choice open response question types were consistent with the state. However, the short answer, we were 4% above the state in that category. For math results for grade 6, our overall proficiency rate of 62% was down 1%, but 2% higher than the state. We had an increase of 10% in advanced, and that plays a role in determining your level. You now get credit for moving students from proficient to advanced, where before you did not. We had a decrease of 5% in warning, while the state remained even, and an increase of 5% in needs improvement, while the state decreased by 1% in that area. The multiple choice and open response and short answer for that grade level are all higher than the state. (2012) science results for grade 5. We had an overall proficiency rate of 48%, which was up 6%, 4% lower than the state. Decrease of 5% in warning, which had it was a decrease of 1% in the state, and a decrease of 1% in needs improvement. The state decreased by 2% in that area. Multiple choice, we were down by 2% compared to the state, and open response was even. Those are all the areas I have to present to you, but if you have questions.
I have a question. Is it a worthwhile endeavor to try to track the grades, the students from grade to grade to grade, and make it part of these presentations so that we can see the students in grade 3 4 years ago, how did they perform grade 4, then grade 5, then grade 6, with the profession levels increasing, decreasing, you know, et cetera?
It's been something that the state has encouraged us not to do in the past, and then more recently now they're encouraging us to look at that, and they're doing that by the student growth percentile. So I can tell you that for grade 5 last year in ELA, our student growth percentile was 59. For grade 6 in ELA, it was 60. For grade 5 in math, it was 63.
Right.
And for grade 6 in math, it was 60. And what that number indicates is the percentage of students, our Woodsdale's mean or our median score, our middle score, was better than 60% of the other schools.
So is that,
Are there too many variables in there, like different students coming into the system, students leaving, or is it pretty much consistent? I mean, I know once you get to the junior high and high school, you're probably gonna have students.
We do have a transient population. I think that's something that happens in all school systems. They don't publish anything that indicates, I don't believe, that just looks at our cohort. I think that's data that they're starting to make available through us, through the data warehouse that is available to administrators, but it's not something that they're reporting on.
Analyze that. when they-
Yes, we analyze that internally. But in terms of state reporting, it's not there.
And this really links to a conversation that will be held during the budget in terms of the data management piece is growing quite fast, with in terms of just the expectation from the state level with all the testing that is being done, you know, for students, but also with the new evaluation tool, really looking at staff and what type of evidence will be needed in the evaluation process. So you'll hear more about that a little bit later, but yeah, Mike, you're absolutely right that the data management piece of all types of data. You heard Marilyn talk about a variety of the data, and then Matt talking more, and then as more presenters come up. But it's capacity building. It's really about who's doing what, and so you'll be hearing more about that.
And it's becoming more of what we do. I mean, looking at instructional data is something that we're focusing on at all levels. You know, it's something that at Woodsdale we've had a focus on for a few years now. We have data teams that look at not only local but statewide assessment data, and we use that to determine where we are curriculum-wise and make adjustments to the curriculum as a whole, but also to look at individual students and groups of students and make changes to their instructional groupings.
And we can pull those comparisons for you. We have that. Right now, historically, the best we've been able to do, given the way that Massachusetts reports the scores, is give you our grade by grade compared to the students across the state, because they all took the same test. Right. They all took the same 3rd grade test. They all took the same 4th grade test. And so it's been a way for us to find some benchmark to measure ourselves against, because they all took the same test as everybody else in the state. As you said, as we move forward and start talking about growth percentiles, which is the way to go, we're doing what you mentioned, and we're comparing that group of children against where they were last year.
Yeah, it's a good indicator. We've talked in the past about bubbles of students who go through and perform very well. And that throws off all of this, the stuff that you look at when you see, you know, a decrease in this and then a huge increase in the students in this grade level that they left grade 5 and went to grade 6. But when we look at growth percentiles, we're looking at how those kids that came into grade 5 finished grade 5 and how those kids that came into grade 6 finished grade 6. And it allows us to really more accurately judge our success.
And there,
Enhanced success.
because there are other things going on in the state. For example, Terry Sullivan kind of mentioned this a little bit, it's not a high-stakes test till they take it in the 10th grade. So the dip in the middle school, is that because they're at an age where it's not, they're middle school students and they're, you know, adolescents, and it's not a high-stakes test, and then there's this, across Massachusetts, there is an improvement when they get to high school, and how do we factor that in? Does that mean those students were not as talented when they were in the middle school, but they were more talented in grade 5, and they're more talented in the high school level? So the state comparison has been the best way for us to
How do you judge and
be an
journal more?
equalizer and have a benchmark.
Just quickly, in terms of what we've done to keep the focus on student achievement, it's just, simply put, we're leveraging every single thing we can and focusing on achievement for our students. And in terms of our needs, it's, you know, in thinking about this, it's people, PD, and programming that really cause us to do better. So, you know, having the right people in place, having enough people to leverage everybody's talents and experience, and having the PD to provide more is where we're going to improve. So, thank you.
Good evening. My name's Dr. Elizabeth Gonsalves, and I'm the chair of the English department at the Frollo and at the high school, and I'm here to present to you the MCAS results for English Language Arts in grades 7, 8, and 10. I'd like to start with grade 7. These are our current 8th graders. In advanced and proficient, we have 74%. This is a 5% decrease, but it is still 3% ahead of the state, which had a 2% decrease. If you note our passing rate, it's remained unchanged for the last 3 years. 96% of our 7th graders in the last 3 cohorts have passed the MCAS. And that's something, too, that when you consider grades 3, 4, 5, and 6, that these students are becoming acquainted with standardized testing and the expectation, and they are also gaining skills over time that bring them to the point of passing. Of course, the gap and needs improvement is between the advanced and proficient number and passing, and that number has fluctuated 2%, 3%, back and forth. So 3% more grade 7 students scored advanced and proficient in Abington than the Massachusetts average, 3% more grade 7 students passed MCAS in Abington than the state average. To give you some more information by item type about grade 7's performance, in open response, multiple choice, and writing, we increased our open response score by 1%. That's still 3% below the state. We decreased in multiple choice at 76, but we're comparable to the state within 1%. And the writing at grade 7, which is the long composition, we earned 66% of available points. That's 3% down from last year and 2% below the state. But if you look at them, they're currently within a percentage point or 2 of state performance. So that would be similar. We are most concerned at the middle school and the high school with students' performance on open response questions. I am especially concerned because this is the way the PARCC testing will trend. An open response item means the students have read something and answer a question which asks them to demonstrate their reading comprehension by going back to select details from the text. So more of the testing that we will see in the future as we move from MCAS to sharing a testing system with 23 other states will involve this type of item. So this is something that we've been tracking in all content areas, especially at the high school level. You can see that the average performance on an open response item is 2.29, that's out of 4. And there are 4 items. You see 2.52, 2.51, 1.93, 2.20, and those are slightly below the state. Each item has a possible score of 4. 3 means the student has answered the question completely, 2 is a partial answer, and 1 is minimal. So we want to see, on average, all our students getting to 3. Remember, this represents an average performance. We did have students in grade 7 who scored 4 points on these items. We had some who left it blank. But you're seeing the average scores. And we have decreased slightly at grade 7. We went from 2.5 to 2.2, and now we're back up again in open response. For long composition, total is 66 points. Topic development is 55 points, and that's the amount of detail one adds in a composition. Most people think that spelling and grammar are what drive our writing scores, and in conventions, we earn 82% of all available points. So our problem is not with spelling or grammar. Our problem is with adding sufficient detail to show understanding and development of topics. You might think of the length of a sentence, or the number of sentences in a paragraph, or the number of paragraphs in an essay. And that would give you an idea of topic development. In grade 8, this test is different. In grade 7 and grade 10, there's a long composition in which a writing score is yielded. But there is no long essay in grade 8. It's a test of reading comprehension. It has multiple choice and open response only. These grade 8 students are current 9th graders. And if you take a look at the increase from last year to this year, there's a 7% increase, even though the passing remains the same. That means we've had a number of students given the previous year's 8th grade and that year's 8th grade, 7% more scored in the advanced and proficient categories overall. The state is below 81% versus 87%. So we are 6% higher than the state. 6% more Abington grade 8 students scored advanced and proficient than the Massachusetts average, and 2% more Abington grade 8 students passed MCAS than the Mass average. So our current 9th graders are ahead of the curve, and we're looking for this cohort to continue with that in grade 10. The question is, what percentage of this grade 8 cohort has left the Abington public school system, either to go to vocational school or to go to private school? And we may or may not see that reflect in our scores. The more that we can retain those students in the Abington public schools, the more we can carry over that surge in our testing. Our grade 8 students in reading, on average, tested similarly to the Mass average. 72%, it's a 6% drop, and it's 3% lower than the state, so the state had a little bit of a drop too. Open response, we're ahead of the state, 66%. It's a 3% drop for us, but we're 3% better than the state. So we're looking at that increase in open response scoring very positively. And if you can take a look at the Abington 2.64 average, although it's a decrease from our previous years, it's better than the state, and you can see how close these open response scores are to 3. This is something we would like to see. On average, our students are scoring 2.95. And it's grade 8. If you were to look at the percentage that scored 4, 3, 2, or 1, it's the first time in a long time that we've had double-digit numbers of students scoring 4 out of 4 on open response items. So it's the performance of those excellent students that are really causing everything to rise. 2012, grade 10, English Language Arts, Advanced and Proficient. We are here at 85% in advanced and proficient, which reflects a slight decrease. And you notice the percentage passing, 100%, 99%, 97%. So a smaller percentage of grade 10 students achieved advanced and proficient than the Massachusetts average, which is 88%. The 97% pass rate recorded here reflects the increased number of students taking the MCAS alternative test. Those are students who are not performing on grade level, who are not ready to take the MCAS, who take an alternative test, and those are usually students with substantive special needs. So we are keeping these students in district. We are serving them within a separate program. They take a separate test. If you were to look at all the students who are not in substantially separate special needs, who are taking the regular MCAS, 87.5% of those students, which is close to the 88, are in advanced and proficient, and all students who took the regular MCAS passed. So I think that's an important distinction to make. Observations by item type. Abington students scored 80% of all available points in multiple choice, which is a 4% drop from last year, but only 1% different than the state. Open response, they scored 56% of all available points, which is a 6% drop, and a 10% differential from the state. Long composition, 70% of all available points, which is a slight drop from last year, but only a 1% difference from the state of Massachusetts. So for open response, we see the average has declined. You see 2010 was 2.3, 2.48. We increased, but now we're at 2.24. And you see that these numbers are closer to 2 than 3, which means they are only presenting part of the evidence that's available to show that they understood their reading. So they scored lower than the state on every open response item and lower than last year's average, a trend that we're concerned about. But again, what percentage of the students who scored well in grade 8 are no longer in our school system, who has crossed into our school system? And I think, Mr. Schaefer, you quite aptly note that in adolescence, many students are not so concerned about how their scores represent the state or their teacher or their school. It's, how can I finish this quickly? If you've ever talked to a teenager and you really wanted an answer to a question, you might get yes, no, maybe. And the question after completing a writing assignment is this enough? And that's the trend in adolescence that might reflect those scores. In grade 10, long composition, we earned 70% of all available points. Again, look at the difference between topic development, 59% of available points, versus the state's 60, so it's comparable. But look also, our students are earning 87% of the points for conventions, the state at 90. The problem is not with grammar or spelling or following capitalization or punctuation rules. What we need to encourage our students to do in open response and long composition is to develop their writing with detail. In open response, returning to a text. In long composition, what grade 10 students have to do is remember a book they have read. They have no book in their hand. Everything is recall, and they have to get that detail from memory. So their topic development is weaker than the rules that they've internalized. So observations about reading, grades 7, 8, and 10. The most difficult items for our students still involve answering open response items completely. To succeed, now you think this is a writing item. To succeed, they have to be able to read closely, both the text that's given to them and the question. They have to answer all parts of a question. And these are all multiple part questions. They need to quote the text directly. So to say, in the second paragraph, in this sentence, the author said, strengthens an answer. And they need to extend their writing with examples from experience and connections to other content. To get a 4, you need to say, I've experienced something similar, or when I was in science class, I read this, or I remember learning this someplace. To extend it, it's almost, if you think of basketball, the difference between a 1-point, 2-point, and a 3-point shot. I like to think that scoring 4 on open response would be like sinking a basket from half court. Some people can do it. Open response, this is how they're scored. 1 is a minimal response, 2 is a partial response, 3 means you've done everything the question asks you to do, and 4 means you've extended it in some way, either making a connection or sharing experience. To improve their scores, students need to recognize when their written answers are incomplete and to extend their answers. In open response, that means you've got to go back to the thing you just read and add another detail. There are more details there to add. They just need to know when their answer isn't enough. Long composition, students again have to follow directions and answer all parts of a question, develop more supporting detail, use a richer vocabulary, and develop more complex sentences. Developing more supporting detail is probably the most important thing students can do. What would I recommend? Students need to read more, including informational articles and nonfiction. They need to be familiar with the kinds of readings that will appear on tests. They need to focus on vocabulary and context and using skills like prefixes, suffixes, word roots, their experience, connections to other content area, because they can't look at a dictionary when they're doing this type of reading. They need to be able to outline important ideas, highlight or use sticky notes. They can write on their test when they take it. They need to include more supporting detail and examples in all writing. They need to write more frequently with model papers as guides. And this is something that's available to anyone who can get on the internet and go to the Department of Education site. You can look at any MCAS test that's ever been given, and there is sample student work for every open response item at each score point. So parents, students, and teachers can see what a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 looks like, and there's nothing wrong with sharing those with students. In fact, that's something that I do. Say, and then after I show them what the scores are, we sort of play a guess the score game. You know, what score would you give this? What score would you give that? So they understand how their own work is being scored. And students also need to do homework. They need independent practice. So it's not just I need to do it in school and when someone asks me to. In conversation, we can press and say, well, explain that a little bit more. Give me another detail, and try and get students to tell us more, both in speaking and in writing. Are there any questions?
Someday we will be paperless.
Hi, I'm Meg Doherty. I'm the math department chair, and I can only wish I was as elegant as Dr. Gonzalez.
Oh, you are, Meg.
Oh, not quite.
Just that mathematical way.
As long as I don't say that.
I'm here to tell you a little bit about the 2012 results for grades 7, 8, and 10 in math. In our grade 7 results, although Abington has remained fairly consistent over the past few years, you can see our scores were between 48 and 53 for the past 4 years. We've remained consistent, but the state has continued to improve. Abington's 3% below the state in advanced and proficient rates, and 2% below the state in passing rates. We have a score of 48 in terms of advanced proficient. The state has a score of 51 in terms of passing rates. We are at 80%, and the state is at 82. The way they break up the data is by the 5 standards. That will be changing next year to reflect the Common Core and the domains. So as you can see, we were 6% below the state in number sense and operations, 3% below the state in numbers, patterns, and algebra, 4% below in geometry. Once again, our nemesis, that measurement, we were 7% below the state, and statistics, probability, and data, we were 6% below the state. In terms of question type, our multiple choice, we were pretty consistent with the state being only 2% below. Our short answer is the biggest inconsistency over all the data over all the years. There traditionally are 5 questions that are short answer, and it's right or it's wrong. There's no partial credit. So since there's only 5 questions, it usually has the biggest discrepancy in terms of what it is from the state. And our open response, we were 4% below the state. In terms of grade 8, one of the things that was brought up earlier is, can you compare students to previous years? And it is difficult to do, but sometimes when you have the motivation and a little bit of time, you can get a little bit of somewhere. And you'll see why I went and looked. In 2009, we were at 45% passing. In advanced and proficient in grade 8. In 2011, we were 44%. So you can see our data for the last 3 years was very, very consistent, 44 and 45%. Last year, our current 9th graders, those 8th graders, had an advanced proficient rate of 63%, which is quite a jump from the previous years. So I had heard on the news that Massachusetts, across the board, the grade 8 scores went up, and that they were very strong in math and science. So I was very excited about that. And I said, gee, I wonder how they did last year, if this is truly these students or if this reflects the test. And when I went back and did a little bit of investigation, as 7th graders, these particular students only had 53% in advanced proficient, compared to the state's 51. So although last year they remained very consistent with the state, this year they made a remarkable jump over the state, which I think is tremendous and a huge accomplishment for both those students, the teachers, and the administration. And last year, the state had 52% in this category as well. So in that particular case, the state remains consistent, and we had a huge improvement. When you have a big improvement, the numbers are positive, which is great. Number sense and operation, we were above the state by 4%. Patterns, relations, and algebra, they were above the state by 1%. Geometry, measurement, and data and statistics, which in grade 7 were a weakness, were now one of our strengths in grade 8. In terms of multiple choice, we have 3%. Short answer, it's that same idea. It's going to be the biggest discrepancy most times. At 5%, and open response, we're above the state in 4%, with 4%. In terms of some general observations and what we're currently doing, teachers are currently in the process of transitioning the curriculum to align with the 2011 math frameworks. So I think it's one of the things you've heard a lot about the Common Core. The Common Core does not have scaffolding built in. It's you learn it for mastery, and the next year you learn new topics for mastery, which allows you to do less better. The hard part is trying to transition between two curriculums and not create any gaps. So we're currently in the process of doing that. The middle school is pretty much fully implemented in terms of their content. The teachers have dissected the MCAS questions and will embed them throughout the curriculum. The use of Study Island gives students more opportunities to practice the skills that are needed for MCAS. Small group after-school programs were in place prior to MCAS to help those students who struggled. Materials that reflect and support the new frameworks need to be purchased, and that's a very strong piece of information. One of the things with the Common Core and the new frameworks is that it's so much more about how the math is being taught, not necessarily just what is being taught. Middle school teachers worked diligently over the summer to create lessons that reflected both the content and the standards for mathematical practice. The Foley School Improvement Plan reflects these actions. Created by the math department to improve student performance. The curriculum maps have been updated to reflect the items being taught during this crossover year, and a strong emphasis is being placed on PD around the new state frameworks in math. In terms of grade 10, once again, I printed the last 4 years. You can see we're fairly consistent, and we have the same issue that Dr. Gonzalez talked about. Only 100 students took the test, although the results are based on 103 students, I believe it was. Only 4 students out of the 100 did not pass. The students, Abington remained consistent while the state continues to improve. Something that's unique is that 20 out of the 100 students who took the test were not enrolled in a formal geometry class, which means that they don't have access to the complete curriculum that's being tested. So basically it means that either they failed Algebra 1 in grade 8 and had to, in grade 9 and had to repeat it in grade 10, so they didn't have geometry, or they started off in pre-algebra in grade 9 and had Algebra 1 in grade 10. Traditionally, we've been able to offer an MCAS remediation class. Unfortunately, that was to bring those kids up to speed. Unfortunately, that was one of the things that had been cut when we had to had some budget cuts. We have 74% in advanced and proficient, while the state has 78%. We have 92% of the students passing on the first time, and the state has 93%. In terms of the standards, we are 4% below in number sense and operations. We are 4% below in patterns, relations, and algebra. We are 5% below in geometry, 6% below in measurement, and if you put those two together, you can see why they're pretty much the biggest hit if we had 20% of the students who sat for the test not have a formal geometry course. And then data, statistics, and probability are 8% below the state. In terms of question type, multiple choice, we were 5% below the state. Short answer, we were 6% below the state. And in open response, we were 6% below the state. In terms of 2012, 92% of the students did pass on the first try. When you think that there's 4 students who didn't, 4 students is a very nice number. You can wrap your arms around them and get them the MCAS tutoring that they do get. We do have students who, if they do fail, we offer MCAS tutoring to them during the day before their retake. Recent budget cuts continue to have an effect on the high school, and it means there's no opportunities to run classes such as MCAS Math, which we used to run for full year, then a half year, and currently don't run it. AP Stats and problem solving. This means there's no way to teach geometry to students who have not currently had a formal class. And materials that reflect and support the new frameworks need to be purchased. We had an addition of 3/5 of a teacher last year, and that does help us offer more section, but doesn't allow us to remediate or to offer any courses that have been cut. The administration has made a strong commitment to supporting professional development around the Common Core, and over the next few years, this will be a work in progress as we try to implement the new frameworks without creating any gaps. Questions?
Yes. So we have currently 4 individuals that haven't passed the math that are in danger of not getting a diploma?
I can't commit to that yet because they've already taken the retake. They've taken the first retake, and we should get those results within the next 2 weeks. But we have 4 students who took it as sophomores who are currently juniors.
Yeah.
Who did not pass the test.
There's
So-
no way that we can plug them into a previous geometry course that's being offered?
Well, they would be currently in geometry if they hadn't
Okay.
taken it yet. So
All right.
they're currently in geometry. Then what we also do is we pull them out of their study halls and we put them into MCAS tutoring, which is very small group instruction, where they spend their time specifically going through an item analysis of their results so that we know their individual strengths and weaknesses. And with an MCAS tutor, go through to increase their weaknesses and then to practice taking the test. A lot of the kids, I hate to admit, are a little scared about math. And so to put a math test on the plate that counts for graduation really builds up that anxiety. So a lot of working with the kids who haven't passed is to get them to feel comfortable with taking the MCAS and to get them to feel confident that they can. And usually, the majority of them pass on the first time with the retest.
So we do have a workaround for those?
Absolutely,
Okay,
yes,
all right.
yes.
I was worried that right
Yes.
now they were,
We
the way
have
this is
supports-
worded, that they were lingering out there with any support.
No, we have supports for students who have failed the test. What we don't have, or we're currently working with, is putting supports in prior to students.
Okay.
So we look at kids who are in danger. So for example, since we only had 4 kids who didn't pass, and we have a new semester coming up and we'll get those results, if they pass, what we'll do is we'll pull in kids who are currently sophomores who haven't taken the math MCAS yet in grade 10 and put our support around those kids who are most at need and who are most danger of failing to get them that confidence to be able to pass on the first time.
It's drilled down to a level that you know the students that are coming to you, although we don't get the results to the following year and the schedule is made, those students aren't born in September of that year. They have a history that follows them, and so we're able to create assistance around that.
Absolutely.
So it's identifying the kids that are on warning status prior and
Yes, that's how.
coaching them up, basically.
Exactly.
With the other individuals.
Exactly, whereas before we used to be able to built it right into their schedule. It was a class, and any 8th grader who got warning was automatically invited to the class. And the nice part about that is that we had the ability to be able to give them the practice MCAS and to build up their confidence and to get them that geometry that they haven't seen. It's not as if they don't have it now. Oh, I didn't realize she was on the computer. What we do now is, for example, kids who are in pre-algebra. We've changed our pre-algebra curriculum to reflect some of the geometry and the probability that they won't have. So the first half is algebra of pre-algebra, basics of algebra and number sense. The second half now is geometry and probability, so that they have the ability to have those. The hard part is that it's a full year before they take the MCAS, because they take that as 9th graders.
So it'd be nice to have programming for preventative versus reactive. So what we have in place is reactive programming, so that when kids are in warning, okay, what are we doing for them? Instead of, let's try to make sure that they don't get in warning.
Absolutely.
So that's something we can talk about in the future moving forward.
Absolutely. One of the things that also does is when we have those supports in place is it moves those kids from needs improvement to proficient as well.
Right.
So it really kind of moves the entire average up.
And as Matt indicated, that counts now. So the more that we can get kids to
Right.
higher levels, that's going to help us, as the state is still gauging how we're doing as a town.
And right now, we're focusing on those students who are in warning or needs improvement, and we're worried about their graduation. But also in this presentation, you saw that we're limited in terms of the AP offering at the high school for those students that are ready for the advanced placement classes. We've had to cut that.
And I think Dr. Gonzalez brought that up too, is that if we had those offerings, we may be able to keep more students within our own system, and that would increase our grades as well, I believe. And plus, they're going to need 4 years of math, and I know Ms. Sullivan will be speaking about that soon.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Diane Salvetti, and I am the science chairperson for the middle school and high school science department. And I am here to talk about the 8th grade and the high school science MCAS. Before I get into the results, I'd kind of like to give a little overview of our science curriculum in the district. We have what we call an integrated science approach in grades K through 8, which means that all of the students during that school year will be introduced to concepts in physical science, life science, earth and space, and technology and engineering. So the MCAS tests in 5th grade and in 8th grade are based on them being exposed to those 4 areas of science. Now, when the students get up into the high school, that's when we give them, or the state or whatever, gives them a science, a specific subject science test. Subject specific, great. And there's 4 available MCAS tests that the state offers. These 4 tests are based on a full-year science course: biology, chemistry, introductory physics, and technology and engineering. Now, at Abington, we offer full-year courses in biology and chemistry. We do not have a full-year course in an introductory physics, or physics first, which is usually taught at the freshman level, or a full year of technology and engineering. So most of our students do take the biology MCAS. All of our students, as of a couple of years ago, are all in biology as freshmen. And some of our students may opt to take the chemistry test because we own the students that come from other districts that might be in chemistry, that have taken biology, and maybe they want to take the chem test. We always give them the option. We show them a chem test or the bio test and say which a previous MCAS test. But most of our students are taking the biology test. So we've gone from an integrated test. Oh, no, I apologize. That's on the website, previous MCAS tests. Oh, yeah, I get that in my back pocket. Okay. So, yeah. So as I said, they've gone from an integrated approach to, bam, they have to learn or to go through a full year of this course and take that high-stakes test at the end of the year. We are offering biology to freshmen just so that they have a number of times, if they need to, if they fail, then we have a number of times that they can take a retest. And interestingly enough, of all those 4 tests that are given by the state, only biology, there's only a biology retake test. So even if we offered a test in the areas and the students failed it, they would have to take it over the following year. The biology retake is done in February. So the student has, like we have some students now that are sophomores that will take the biology retake in February, and they have another opportunity to take the test again in June. So that, just to give you a little information about that. So I'm going to start with the results for the 8th grade test. And as you can see, for the advanced scores, we are at 2%, a little bit increase from last year. Compared to the state, we're below average by 3%. Our proficient scores had increased to 38% from the previous year. We can see that is a great jump. We are on par with the state at 38%. Our needs improvement went down, which is good, to 48%, but we're above state average. Our warning, another good score, we went down from 24 to 12%, and we're in good standings because the state is at 20% with warning, so we're doing a little bit better than state. So for the open response questions, they have 4 open response questions, 1 in each of those strands: earth, technology, life, and physical. And as you can see, our numbers are low, but the state's numbers are low as well. And as Dr. Gonzalez had talked about what it takes to get a 4, what it takes to get a 3 or a 2, our students are struggling to even get a 2, which means that they're really not answering those questions as well as they should be. In summary, a good talking point is we've got 12% at warning compared to the state at 20%, and 40% of our students scored proficient or higher as compared to the state average 43. So we're really not doing too bad there. And as I said, our open response questions certainly need a little bit more, those students need to answer those questions a lot more, being a lot more specific. For the high school, and again, these scores represent the majority of the freshmen and some sophomores that might be retaking the test. For our advanced, we have a slight decrease from last year at 15%, below state average at 24%. Our proficient had remained the same since last year, but we are above state average from 62, our scores, to the state of 45, for the state, 45%. Needs improvement, we went down a little bit. Fewer students are in the needs improvement category, 20%, as compared to 25% of the state. Our failing rate has maintained a low percent, 3%, as compared to the state average of 6%. So we're doing a little better than state. And here's the dreaded open response questions. Our students have 5 open response questions, and as you can see, the categories are evolution, ecology, genetics, biochemistry, anatomy, and physiology. Again, looking at our results for this year, we still struggle with getting, with getting 2s. You can see that the biochemistry question, a 0.98, very disappointed in that. But again, as Dr. G had said, when the students answer the question, they might answer it or they might leave it blank. And when I went back to that question, 40 students had left that question blank. They didn't even attempt to answer it. Even if they partially answer it, get a point or 2, or a 1.1 or whatever, just something, is certainly going to help. As you know, it's the whole group of students that they take the average of all those open response questions. So that's just something that we are always aware of, and really try and get our students to, make sure you answer the questions, make sure you do the best job, make sure that you read it and go back to it. Did you fill out every part of that question? So as I said, these results are based primarily with 9th graders and 10th grade retakes or students entering the district from other districts. This is the 5th year that we're reporting a STE exam and that it does count for graduation. Our students received an advanced or proficient grade, 77%, as compared to the state of 69%, so that's not too bad. We need to work on our open response questions. The good news is all the members of the class of 213, they have passed an STE exam, and so they're all set for that being part of the graduation requirement. And again, we look at students who are coming into our district that never took the test or failed, they need to retake it. Our students, all our freshmen enrolled in biology, will take the MCAS test in June. And having said that, that's June 4th and 5th. The science test is always at the end of the year when the students are checked out. And so it's really, we're just trying to, cheer them on. You can do it, whatever, chocolate, do anything. Please do well on the test.
Bribery.
Whatever it takes. So that's that.
So all of our freshmen will take this
Yes.
test?
Yes.
That's what they're all taking for science.
Okay.
Thanks, Diane.
If I could just comment quickly, just I want to thank our administrators, our teachers, our students, and our parents, because this is the toughest test in the nation. And obviously, there are some areas there that we want to focus on improvement, but there are also some things that we've done at a time with limited resources that we are proud of. Because we're struggling as a district with the resources that we have compared to what we had 4 years ago. And 4 years ago, we didn't have what some of the other districts have around us. And so I want to make sure that this is somewhat balanced, and there's a lot of information here. And again, remind people that this is the toughest test in the nation for our students. And Massachusetts, judged against other industrialized nations in the world, performs fairly well. The nations that perform the best are those that have more time on learning. Go figure. The more time you spend doing something and practicing, the better you do at it. Some students in other countries actually spend 2 more years in school by the time they're in high school than our students spend in the United States. As we talk later about the budget presentation, you'll see a lot of information that's connected to this, because we make our decisions based on student achievement. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is just a district view. All of this gets broken down, as you saw, as a district, by school, by subject area, by grade. And then what we need to do is also break it down by classroom, by individual students, in individual seats in each classroom in Abington. And that's where you're going to see a lot about how we need to do work in the area of data management and data integrity. Because, you know, back in the day, students would get a book to read, and when they read this book that was at the 4th grade level, they were all reading at the 4th grade level, and they'd move on. And those days are long gone. Now there's a high level of detail. I'll focus on reading. Marilyn talked a little bit about the Gates McGinnity's, where in the individual classrooms, teachers are now determining that I've got 4 students at this reading level in terms of decoding and fluency, and I've got 10 students at this level and 10 students at this level. And so they're building their lessons specific to building those, program for those individual students. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of other work that goes on, and a lot more work that we need to do. So I want to thank everybody, from administrators to our teachers, to our students and our parents, for all the hard work they do on this. We could probably, I don't know how long it might take, it's going to lead into the budget discussion, talk a little bit about the high school. Terry, do you think we could probably do your 2 items that remain and take some questions on that? Because it's going to lead right into one of the budget items we're going to talk about in terms of the teacher. Is that okay?
And really it leads into, when I come back at the end of the month to talk about the program of studies. So this is information I thought should be provided now, because in the program of studies presentation at the end of the month, I'm going to be requesting an increase in the math requirement. And I think it's important to know, we've been talking about this at school council all year, but I had sent a memo to Mr. Schaefer and to you in July that this DOE field of reporting student data and information, it's just a field number 37, was about how many students were completing the state recommended program. And we had been reporting that 100% of our students were completing the state program, the recommended program, and that wasn't true. Only 48% of our students were reporting that, and it really was a technology, just a checkbox, and nobody had really checked on it. And when I asked, and Mr. Heyer got me a list from all of the states, all of the schools in the state, numerous state schools were reporting they were 100% in compliance, and they were not. So I think that's important to note too. But the Mass core requirements we'd been talking about for probably 5 or 6 years, that this is a recommended program of studies, and that's now become the precursor to the state university and college system that is now saying that what we recommended for program of studies, we're now going to make a requirement for freshman admission to college, a state college, specifically beginning with the class of 2016, the college entering freshman class of 2016, which would be our freshmen now. So it made sense to bring it up now so that in our program of studies, we could add to the freshman requirement. So by the time you graduate, that you too would be in compliance with the requirements for a state college system. Specifically, I'm be looking for an additional math requirement. We currently have 3 years of math required. We have 4 years of English, 3 years of math, 3 years of social studies, 3 years of science. And specifically, the math piece is missing. And I think we're looking to increase our math scores across the board. That is an area that we haven't made a lot of progress in. We did significant cuts in the math department. That piece that Ms. Doherty talked about with the MCAS remediation, but in the problem solving and the AP stats classes, I think has been significant. What she didn't mention is we also just this year brought back a tutoring program so that we can pull those students and provide the tutoring that we hope that is, as Dr. Thomas said, pretty reactive. Now that we know we're at risk versus a program that's strong and rich, that attracts those students and keeps them engaged early on. So really it's just, I just want to introduce that as I'm looking for an increase in that math requirement to 4 years of math so that our students will be prepared to enter the college system having that on their transcript. A lot of our students do take 4 years of math, but not all of them. And I think to be competitive, we should consider that.
Are our counselors, the grade counselors now tracking this so that the kids know where they stand?
Yes, and I did provide an additional memo in August that the counselors reviewed the 2012 seniors transcripts, and 21 students did not complete the 4 years of math, 15 did not complete the 2-year foreign language, and 25 did not complete the year of fine arts.
But have we gone back now and scrubbed, like, the class of 13, the class of 14, so we know where they stand? This is a great document. I like this.
Yeah.
I think this should go out to all the parents so that we know when the kids are selecting the courses what they need to do.
And we're proposing putting that in our program of studies, so as they're selecting courses, they'll see that, right?
Yeah, highly recommend that.
We have the math score piece in. We've had that in for years, the recommended, but we didn't have that piece. That just came out, that the university system has, the Mass State college system has said, this is what we're going to expect of our entering college freshmen.
Hey.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I understand that we're not going to get 100% of people doing it because some people don't want to go to college.
Correct.
But we need to know if we're missing classes that we need to develop classes so that the program of study is available to the kids.
Yes, and we need to be the ones that say, no, you must, because what you decide at 15
Exactly.
may not be what you decide at 19 or 20 or when you change your mind. We really do need to prepare them. They are making adolescent decisions, and I think we do need to have a higher standard, or a standard that equals acceptance into a public state college system. The foreign language has been a requirement for years, but a lot of the 15 students who did not take that foreign language, that 2 years of foreign language, most of them have been waived through an IEP, perhaps, that they didn't have to take a foreign language, or they didn't choose to go to college, or a state college. It's not a requirement of private. But we've been able to make that happen. The math, not so much.
Terry, I think, just to reiterate it, our biggest thing is that the most important thing that for our freshman class right now, which is really, this is really focusing on, not that it's not focused on the other ones, but it's going to be a mandatory for that class that's graduating in 2016, is that we need to offer that 4th math for them.
And right now, that class of 2016 is okay because all freshmen are enrolled in math. But as they progress through,
We have to
do
have the
not
offering.
maintain, right, the senior class is not all enrolled in math. But it doesn't feel fair to tell them that in their junior year. But if we determine that now, we put it in the program of studies, we build that into the system.
Exactly. I think not only not fair to tell them in the junior year, not have the offerings to allow them to take that.
Correct.
So right now, it's a capacity issue where we don't offer a 4th year of math.
Correct.
Right.
I mean, there are some offerings, but there are not enough, and enough staff
So there's not enough offerings for everyone to take a fourth year of math, is that what you're
Correct.
saying?
Correct.
There are some offerings, but it would only cover whatever percentage of that class, is that what you're saying?
And we haven't made it a requirement either.
So that's
Just
what
a
I-
recommendation right now from the state.
Yes, but the state is saying we expect, all students entering 2016.
Absolutely.
Right,
It's a
have to
recommendation
be.
right now, but it's
Right.
gonna be a mandatory
Right.
requirement to enter into a university of the state
Correct.
by 2016.
Right.
But it has been a recommendation for a while.
Yes.
So we have.
And some
to
schools have already made it 4 years, and a lot of schools skip that EPP, the Education Proficiency Plan. They kind of dodged the students who weren't making effective progress and they weren't proficient. They have to have a plan, and that includes taking 4 years of math. And lots of schools, as soon as that came down, said, we'll just make it mandatory 4 years of math, so we don't have to write those. We've continued to write individual professional proficiency plans for those students.
So that's the only area right now that otherwise we pretty much have the capacity to meet the need of this current student base.
State regulations.
Yes, that's,
So we are constantly looking at the breadth and depth of the program of studies. and
yeah,
that's
like
what we
offering more
continue to
AP
struggle with.
programs and so on and so forth.
Correct.
But if you look at the fall 2017 and beyond, the science piece, it says 3 courses, including 3 with laboratory work. That's going to be a glitch for us. We have biology and chemistry that have lab work. We have 3 years of science, but they all haven't the others haven't had lab work.
You can see the
lab.
big picture is that just like they keep upping the mandated testing at the younger grade levels, they're aligning it at the college and university state levels as well. So just like science wasn't tested for a long time, now it's tested and it's part of graduation requirements. Now the state college level saying, okay, it makes sense for us to also have that higher bar because we're expecting that the students will be coming to us with.
Well, aren't we migrating out of the MCAS too eventually?
To part of it. Well, it's not
What year is that in?
finalized, but,
Still in the works.
well, we just had this conversation today.
2014-15 is.
2014-15, but there's a lot of kinks that have to be worked out from the State Department and all the local districts. And really, it becomes a capacity with technology. I mean, this will be a completely technology-driven assessment, especially at the older grades. At the younger grades, they're still keeping it paper pencil. But right now, the state's really struggling with how are people, going to, be able to meet the mandate of capacity. And certain districts, they're saying now iPads are the push.
So every district in
certain districts
Massachusetts,
haven't,
kids will have to use a
some don't.
computer to take the test.
Correct.
at the
So
second
computer
level.
labs, basically, testing labs.
Right, exactly.
And not only do we, there are other, us, Abington and other districts don't necessarily have the capacity to do that now. Many districts have already moved to a one-to-one computer initiative, and that's something we need to plan for too.
And with that also is that's a whole different skill set for our students. I mean, kids are used to taking the test with paper pencil. Now it's going to be that they're going to have to, just like Liz was explaining about providing the details, well, now it's you're going back and you're taking the details out of the writing or the reading component, and then you're actually, putting it in, and you're showing the quotes in. It's all that technology that they can use other sources with the park. So they don't just have to use the test, but then they can also go to different sites, and they can show how they're using research to back up their answer. So it's a whole other set of skills that we need to make sure that our students are provided with before that is in place. But we're anticipating the state's not gonna make their deadline, so we're gonna get there in Abington, right?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks.
So it being 1 minute of 8 by the time,
Do the Abington Bank.
I'm sorry?
Abington Bank.
While we're waiting for the appointed hour, I can request acceptance of the Avenue Bank program for 4th graders. This is a program where the bank provides $5 to each of our students in the 4th grade, and it comes with a brief presentation on the benefit of saving, and it's a nice outreach that they have and a benefit for our kids. So.
Motion to accept the Abington Bank program for grade 4 students as presented. Mike?
Second.
Kathy? All in favor? Aye.
No cost of living increase in the past 10 years?
I actually think it was $4 a couple of years ago, so I think they did increase it at some
All
point.
right. Okay, sorry.
So and it's quite an increase,
Okay.
percentage-wise. What I have for you tonight is the FY 2014 preliminary budget proposal. This is just the beginning of the budget process and the budget season. Between now and town meeting, there'll be a number of meetings, discussions, deliberations. This will be sent to the Budget and Finance Subcommittee. There'll be meetings at the town with the town leadership. There'll be meetings with the Finance Committee. We're planning on doing a Saturday meeting again where we can do the budget analysis from the beginning to end. We'll do tours of the building so people can see what we're talking about. In these latest presentations you saw on MCAS, we focused a little bit on the high school and some of the cuts that we have had there over the last 4 years. And we didn't really talk about the elementary level yet, or the middle school level, because there have been cuts across the district. And so what this budget proposal does is this is a restorative budget, but it also adds, as you add back in, it adds back smarter, because times have changed over 4 years, and it focuses on some of those things that we were talking about in terms of data management, the integration of technology. So you will see in this budget proposal positions around that. And hopefully, you'll see, actually, it was nice to have those presentations tonight, because you may see how all of this comes together in terms of why we're requesting some of the things that we need to request to move forward. When I tell you they are truly boilerplate and meat and potatoes types of requests that other districts have and resources that we had, that's what they are. And I'll give you an explanation for each item. So the FY 2014 preliminary budget proposal of $21,601,619 for the Abington Public Schools represents an effort by the administration, faculty, staff, and parents to secure the necessary financial resources to provide the children of Abington with a quality educational program in difficult times. The FY 2014 preliminary budget proposal supports our district's priorities as stated in our district's mission statement, our strategic plan, our improvement plans at the school level, and our goals and our objectives. And again, from the data that you saw, we're using that data to inform our decisions and offer the restorative pieces and the additions here in this budget package. But however, in order to understand some of those restorative moves and what we're looking to add, you need to understand our budget history. In FY 2009, the operating budget for the Abington Public Schools was $19.1 million. It was reduced to $17.7 million for FY 2010, and then further reduced to $17.3 million for FY 11. The 2013 operating budget, currently, the year we're in, is $18.5, almost $18.6 million. So though gains were made in FY 12 and FY 13, we're appreciative of those gains. However, just over a $500,000 gap exists currently, which is a 3% difference from the funding that we had back in 2009. The problem with that is not only is that a 3% cut compared to what we had in 2009, but the cost of education over 4 years hasn't gone down, it's gone up. So compound that 3% cut, and that 3% is hurts more than you would imagine just a 3% cut over 1 year would be, because the cost of special education, cost of health care for employees' benefits, and the cost of salaries, cost of everything, although we've been in a difficult time, has gone up over a 4-year period. I don't have a clicker. You've got a clicker. Thank you. So the following items are of a major concern to us as we build this budget. We have large class sizes at the elementary level. We have felt cuts across our district. We're going to talk about those in a minute in terms of restoring some positions at the elementary level. The elimination of significant amounts of high school and middle school class sections and programs. We've talked about that at the high school level. We haven't spent really much time about that, talking about that at the middle school level. We are going to talk about the library, foreign language, and the addition of some special education at the Frollo. So currently, there is a deficit of almost 38 positions, 37.9 positions across the district compared to 4 years ago. So 4 years ago, there were 38 more employees in the district. And you may not think that that's necessarily something that you'd be concerned about, but 20 of them, 19.9, were classroom teachers. That's a one-to-one relationship to program for kids. The more teachers you have, the lower your class sizes, and the more program you're offering, as we talked about here, for example, with math at the high school, compared to 4 years ago. The reason I use a decimal point there is because I'm often asked, are these 37 or 38 individual people in positions, full-time positions? Yes, these are full-time positions. That's the full-time equivalency. So you don't think it's 3 or 4 people that do 40 different jobs with stipends. These are full-time positions in the school system. Another concern is the increase of fees we've had and the reliance on community organizations to fund our public school program for athletics, co-curricular activities, pre-kindergarten, and full-day kindergarten. In the United States, we are required as communities to provide an education to our children. And what we have done is we've shifted the burden to booster groups, the collection of fees, which are really a tax on the people that use the school system, and all other systems in Massachusetts have done this. But it is something that is an area of concern that we ought to be providing for our students and our families without a fee or without relying on music and sports boosters to fund programs in the school system. The proposed increase in this budget for FY14 takes a few things into consideration and are being driven by built-in increases for fixed and mandated costs that are going to increase our budget number regardless. Specifically, special education costs, again, health benefits, and salary amounts, line items are increasing. The increase in class sizes and the reduction in programs and student services, coupled with the growing needs of our students, is having a negative impact on our student achievement. You saw in that presentation we have had areas that there was a slip or a stagnant, where there was no growth, where we want to see some growth. We had some areas where there was some growth, and we're proud of those. The more programming we're able to offer, the fewer our numbers of students per teacher in our classes, we believe will only benefit our student achievement. So therefore, it's imperative that we reinstitute programs and student services by restoring faculty and staff. Again, the purpose in restoring those people is so we can offer the program to our students we want and we need to offer. Programs that are offered in other districts. Our students are also coming to us these days less school ready. Just if I can talk about this for a quick moment. Families are having a tougher time than they've had in the past. Social issues, family issues are more prevalent in our society 4 years into this economic downturn, not less. And that all plays out in our schoolhouses in terms of getting our students ready to learn. It's difficult to learn how to count, understand how to read when your family's having some issues of a greater concern to a 7-year-old than necessarily learning how to read and write. So we have to address those issues before we can make improvements in student achievement. Sorry. This is our selected per pupil cost compared to other districts for FY 2011. These districts are selected because They are either immediately contingent to Abington or in the periphery. And it's a good comparison, I think, to see what's going on in other places, and also compares us to the state. This is a per pupil expenditure for FY 2011. This is the latest audit of school systems that the state has for all school systems in the state. That's why we use 2011. It lags behind a year. It's also all dollars spent on children in each of these districts. So it includes grant funding, it includes Chapter 70 funding, it includes the town funding, it includes donations, it includes benefits for employees, town services. Every dollar spent on children in these districts is represented here. It's the best apples to apples comparison you're going to find anywhere, and it's actually pretty good in terms of dollars spent on children in a comparative way from town to town in our state. So you can see that Abington for FY 2011, on average, spent $11,415 per pupil. We have special education placements that are that times 10 and more, that are much more expensive. We have students that we probably spend far less on per pupil. This is an average number of the number of students divided by total dollars spent across districts. The state average is just almost $2,000 more than what we spend in Abington. We made references and compared ourselves to the state during the MCAS presentation because it was a good benchmark, and our per pupil expenditure is $2,000 below that of the state average. And the point we make every year is that if we had the average state per pupil expenditure for Abington, it would mean almost an additional $4 million. And we would do quite a bit with a $4 million increase to the school department budget. Later in this budget presentation, you're going to see an increase by major category that's going to reference back to some of this information. The reason I cover this first is because once we talk about the increase by major category, that's what people focus on. I think it's important to talk a little bit about what goes into that. So one of the items you'll see is an increase in the salary account. What we are proposing as a preliminary budget for deliberation and discussion is the addition of a lead teacher stipend. This is not a full-time equivalency. This is just a stipend for a lead teacher at the Center Elementary School. The principal of the Center Elementary School is required to do home visits, a number of IEP meetings. It takes them out of their office for a substantial amount of time. And in terms of providing supervision and safety to those students at that building, having a lead teacher in that building who's a classroom teacher who's assigned that responsibility would be a benefit to that school building. The Beaverbrook Elementary School, the proposed addition of a special education teacher. We have a large number and increasing class size of students with autism. This would help address their needs, helping to keep students in our district. A tutor for that program, again, providing a better program for those special education students on the autism spectrum, and again, hoping to provide them a service that will maintain them in our district. It's always better for the child to be educated in the district where they live. It provides a more natural environment for them if it can be done. And it also saves quite a bit of money because it's cheaper for us to educate them in the system than send them to a highly specialized program out of the district. A grade 2 teacher. The addition of a grade 2 teacher at the Beaverbrook Elementary School would provide a class size of 25. A grade 3 teacher would also provide a class size of 25. It would be a little aggressive to try to get us to 22 students in grade 4, but I need to tell you that in other districts, these are the types of numbers that they have in their early elementary program. Every time you take a teacher away at the elementary program, you're basically adding about 5 students to the overall class, to that overall number per class. Every time you add a teacher, you are reducing that number by 5 as you divide out our classes among the 5 or 6 sections at the elementary level. Continuing on, in grade 5, adding a teacher would reduce that anticipated class size to 30. Another grade 5 teacher would reduce it more consistent with what we are proposing at the earlier elementary level of 25. Adding a grade 6 teacher would reduce what we are projecting to a class size of 27. An additional grade 6 teacher, again, lowering that 27 to a class size of 23. At the elementary level, there is a proposed increase in the music department of 1 music teacher. What we do now is we combine instrumental sections, so you've got different numbers of students learning different types of instruments, working in the same room with 1 teacher. That's not the best way to provide a music program. We've got the assistance of the tutors that break it down into smaller groups, but this would assist us with the music offering. Adding a social worker at the elementary level. Our students are less school ready than ever before with the number of issues they come to us with from their homes. We've currently been fulfilling this with interns. We've been very fortunate that we've been able to be creative and use interns in that capacity. The best way for us to move forward would be to hire professionals in this area and hire a social worker for the elementary level. Instructional technologist improves the integration of technology at the elementary level. We talked just a little bit about where we're going with Park. Creating competitive graduates in this economy, in this age, means integrating the use of technology into the daily practices of life at our schools. So it means that students would be completing assessments, performance assessments, using more technology. It means teachers would be delivering more information, using more technology. The use of smart boards, the computer, websites to deliver information, teacher websites, having students be able to download that information from home. All of these things are things that are being done and our students need to be able to live in. As we compare ourselves to the state standards for what Massachusetts students should know or be able to do when they graduate from high school, we need to make substantial gains in that area so that we can provide our students what they need in a competitive job market and when they go to college. And so instructional technologists help make sure they teach lessons with teachers. They integrate the use of technology into the daily practices in classrooms. Other districts have this. We do not. This is not pie in the sky. But for example, 4 years ago, that probably wasn't one of the positions that we were looking to add. However, over the last 2 or 3 years, it certainly has been and will continue to be. For the middle school, looking for the addition of a foreign language teacher. This would mean that we'd be able to offer foreign language in grade 7. Right now, there's a heavy emphasis on Spanish because we don't offer the exploratory sections and give students the opportunity to experience French before they get into our high school program. Other systems are offering German, Latin, Chinese, French, and Spanish. We need to get back to offering foreign language minimally at the middle school. Many other systems offer it at the elementary level. And when I say many, I'm not exaggerating. 0.5 special education teacher to improve the special education services at the Frollio Middle School. I was a middle school principal for a long time. I was a middle school teacher. I can tell you adolescents in general can use the extra support. We certainly could use the additional support in the area of special education. For the Frollio, as we look to implement a team chair model, that's something that we might need to do just to support the students there. This is something that we had in our proposal last year for the middle school as students transitioned from the Woodsdale. A library tutor to keep the library open for the entire day. These are 0.5 positions. This is a half-time person or half of a full-time equivalency. 0.6 health and wellness teacher. This increases the health offering at the Frollio Middle School. Currently, our Seventh graders take 60 days, and our eighth graders take 30 days. Again, just to talk a little bit about adolescence, a health program that offers more than 90 days for 2 years is a good thing for our adolescents, especially in this day and this age with the issues that our students are dealing with. Turn on the television, open the newspaper, and you can see what our students are dealing with. And this will take our students out of study halls, which is a waste of time for us. They're doing work in their study halls. We make it as productive as possible, but let's face it, we need time on learning if we're going to improve student achievement. A .4 math position, that means this person will be able to teach 2 classes. This would remove our assistant principal, who spends 2 periods a day teaching in this area, out of that. And that's why that would increase ourselves at the middle school to a full-time assistant principal. I don't need to tell you how that improves the safety and supervision of the student body. A tutor at the middle school to provide an increased amount of remedial services for our students. You had an MCAS presentation there that we talked about how we want to do more for those students in a way that's proactive. We have the data. We know who we need to focus on. We need the resources so that we can do that for our students. At Abington High School, I don't know that I need to spend any more time on the math and the need to add a math teacher. Just also, though, I want to highlight the fact that we offered 4 years ago more credits in the area of AP Calculus than we're currently offering. We would be able to restore that to Abington High School, which would be significant and important because we want to service the needs of all children across the district, not only those that are struggling, but those on the other end that are ready for those challenges and that rigor. That's what we should be doing for our students. .4 science, which would allow for the scheduling of AP biology. Right now, we could only schedule AP biology if every student in the AP track had all the same classes. It's impossible to offer AP biology to students right now with the current staffing because we don't have the section available for those students with the other classes that they are taking. But we've got the students that want to take it. Art has evolved over the last couple of decades into a more technical field in schools, which is good news. And we have an amazing art program at Abington High School, and that's fed by a good program throughout our system. And adding this art teacher would mean high-tech design classes in the area of art. I think maybe another section of sculpture. And again, it would take our students out of study hall and a worthwhile program of studies offering that helps make us a competitive school. At the secondary level, we'd be looking to add another instructional technologist to improve the integration at the secondary level, to improve what our students are able to do as they leave our system in the area of technology. In terms of district-wide positions, adding a technology trainer. This provides technology. This is more of the training people to handle those more manageable break-fix things that occur in their classrooms, installing software, the setup of computers, the using of different softwares in their delivery. And what that means is we're not taxing our network or our data people with lower-level items, and we're building capacity within our staff so that once they're able to do these things, this person's able to move on to the next person and hopefully not have to go back. That person will be able to do those things on their own. This is an efficient way to run a technology program by building the capacity of the people that you have to handle those things in their room that they can handle. The day and the age of being in a classroom and the light on the VCR was blinking and we need to learn how to turn it off are over. These are more technologically sophisticated classrooms where people need the training in this area. A data manager. this is not pie in the sky. The amount of data fields that we are currently juggling for 2,000 plus 2,050 students and just under 300 staff members each have multiple fields. We're talking 60 or 70 different data fields for each person that change sometimes a number of times in one school year. Terry Sullivan, our principal, mentioned earlier tonight about reporting on DOE 37. That's just one field for every student at Abington High School that relates to every single class they took at Abington High School. So you take the number of students times the number of classes times the number of years they were there, and that's what that one data element represents. And that's why we need a data manager. Point 5, supervisor of custodial grounds and safety. This improves the supervision and the safety of our buildings and our management of our grounds. Folks, I know that this is not a newsflash, but we have aging buildings that are difficult to take care of and manage. Later, Felicia has an update on school building. We hope to make improvements in that area. But we are fortunate that our head custodians do the job that they do to keep our buildings safe and clean and ready for our students, something we're proud of every day. But we need the increased assistance and supervision there. We cut this person out of our budget. Rather than adding a full-time person, we've gotten by everybody else picking up the slack and adding a minimal stipend for someone to help us with scheduling for multiple people at multiple buildings. The other item on this list is not, would not come out of our budget. It's not represented in what you're going to see on the major increase page, but it's the request to the town of Abington to add a school resource officer. I think that it would be wrong not to ask for this. Other districts have these officers in their building, and I don't need to spend probably any time on what occurred in Connecticut prior to the holidays and how this would just help provide safety and supervision for our buildings and a communication with the police department that we need to help assist us with supervision and safety. And this is the page that everybody wants to see. This is the increase by major category page from FY13 to FY 2014. So in the salary account, we're anticipating at this point, in terms of contractual obligations, an increase of $374,193. We have a grant funding cliff that we've talked about that's going to create a challenge for us. This is the combination of two things. The Ed Jobs money that we received 4 years ago that we used for 3 years and carried over into the fourth year into this year through the circuit breaker. And this is also the addition of a grant that we received 3 years ago, the Carol White grant, for about $56,000, $60,000. We added to this funding whole. There is a PE teacher that we currently have in the system that's not on that addition sheet that we're carrying here because it's currently a position we have, and we need to find a way to carry that over so that we don't cut that level of service and eliminate any PE from the elementary level. We also have the addition of a Chapter 150E line. Those are for items that remain to be negotiated with collective bargaining groups. We are almost done with the negotiation process. We've settled the teacher's contract. That's good news, and other employees, but there's still items out there that remain to be negotiated. So that's an enablement for that. And then all of the new and or restored positions that you saw on the previous pages, it's anticipated would total just over $1 million to fund. There were a number of positions there. They were not in priority order. If you notice, they were more in a chronological order across the district, finishing off with district-wide positions. The other thing that we add to this budget is the addition of some capital work for technology infrastructure, for a wireless one-to-one for computing. This is where we need to be planning and going in the future to provide our students, at least for the first phase at the secondary level, with computers for a one-to-one initiative. We have a wireless capacity that was able to handle what we were doing up until the age of people bringing smartphones to school. Our students now bring those to school, and our system is currently struggling to handle the capacity of the number of users that are interfacing with the network. They are used in instruction in classrooms, and we need to build out, increase our capacity as we look to add a one-to-one computer ratio, in the couple of years to come. Continuing on, programs of other districts in terms of special education tuitions. We are anticipating just over a $300,000 increase. That's less than last year's anticipated increase. I think last year we started about $400,000. We started $600,000 and we were able to work it down to $400,000. The good news is that we're starting at $300,000 this year. That number could actually go up or down. We always hope that it goes down. That's where it is as of today. That is a snapshot in time that's as good as January 8th, 2013, and we track that very closely heading into April. This budget proposal estimates a circuit breaker reimbursement at 55%. The reimbursement could be better than that. This year's reimbursement is better than that, but at 55% compared to where it is this year, it would mean an increase of $149,538 to our budget. This is a starting point as of January 8th. In terms of athletics and music, we group those together because that represents sub-varsity sports. That's the amount of money that our boosters program provides to us to run everything other than the varsity sports program. So that's JV and freshman sports. Those are the stipends for the coaches primarily that run those programs. And then the athletic expenses is an increase primarily in transportation. There are minimal increases in officials and timekeepers, trainers that we're required to have at our sports, but primarily I think $6,300 of that is transportation. The music tutors and the stipended positions, the music boosters provide stipended positions for our high school program like color guard, and at the elementary level, they take those students that are learning different instruments and take them into different sections at the elementary level to try to break it down, to provide music instruction. Our music boosters pay for that. Other school services, we know our transportation contract is going to go up to $12,195. Special education transportation, that's anticipated that would go up $11,000. But again, that's relying on placements. If a student goes to a town with a program 40 miles away instead of 20 miles away, that changes daily. It charges a daily rate to transport those students to those programs. In terms of instruction, we talked just a little bit about math, but there are other items. When Meg Doherty was here, she talked about what we need to do in terms of textbooks for our high school. We also need to provide curriculum support across the district, pre-K, from the elementary to the high school level. This is an increase over what we're already spending. These are for textbook series and things like that we'd like to add.
Is that just textbooks, period, no positions or anything else? So it's a capital item, basically. It's a one-time expense.
No. They're consumable.
Textbooks are not.
Well, consumable, you know.
Well, it's a one-time purchase of new books.
But every year there's a different subject area that needs that one-time purchase. For example, some of our math books that we're currently using at the high school are older than the students that are using them.
Well, this would buy a new series of textbooks.
That would take care of that problem. But then the following year, the English department would come and say, we need textbooks because our series is older. So you're right, it's capitalized, it's a one-time.
So is this not a one-shot deal?
For example, in the budget itself, over $67,000 in elementary consumable textbook materials.
Consumable.
textbook materials.
1 year deal.
They use them for 1 year, then we gotta get all new ones for the next set of fourth grade.
Because they're workbooks that they have to write in.
All right, we need iPads.
Well, that's, when you say that, a lot of this
You
money
know,
would
it's
shift
16.
towards technology.
But that's
So-
hundreds of thousands versus 80.
Well, you do this over a 4-year period, you're talking $250,000. Sorry.
No, it's a good point. It's one of the reasons we
Well,
wanted
that's
to
why
move to
we need to
technology.
clarify these issues, you know, it's like, I'm used to a textbook, okay, you got it, all right, it's gonna be in the system for 15 years, you're gonna use it for 15 years, if you lose it, you buy it, you know, and it reimburses it.
And the new textbook, they're not new, the series, textbook series that we have at the elementary level, especially at the elementary level, are so dependent on these computers. And we've talked, this is since I've been in Abington, and the whole consumable movement in textbooks, that's how the textbook companies
Make the money.
honestly are making.
Yeah.
The other thing that's occurring is when you buy a textbook series, there are online references that students can use for tutorial purposes or to assist them at home. And they're good, they're not good things to have, they're really requirements these days for students to be successful. You buy those licensing agreements for 3 and 5 years, depending on what you're buying. So they get you on that so that you can use the online resources that accompany these books
What's the
these days.
utilization rate of that, though? Do you know?
They use them.
At home, I don't know, I don't have
My
a
house.
elementary anymore, you know?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm talking more about the secondary
I
level.
mean, I
Well-
think this is probably a really important piece, if I can just.
Yeah, please.
One of the things that we found with textbooks, for example, is the textbook companies are going to continue to make money. So you would, in olden days, you'd buy a textbook, it would cost $60, it would have a 15-year life. You talked about buying an iPad. Well, now they sell you licenses. So it actually, over the long term, would most likely cost you even more than that one book cost that you got 15 years out of, because they give you buy a 3-year license for $80 a student, and then after 3 years, you're buying another license, or they want you to upgrade and get a new, so the textbook companies are gonna make their money,
No matter what.
no matter what. No matter what the way that we get the information, whether it's in a textbook itself or through technology, they're gonna make their money.
And
And
if you
we're not
don't-
gonna save money.
And if you don't order and use these up-to-date resources and supplies, you're short-shifting your children, because people in other districts are using them, and our students are competing against students from other districts for spots in colleges.
And Aaron Heyer at our admin meeting today just was bringing up that our newest computers are 7 or 8 years old. And so they're usually a lifetime capacity of 5 years. And so that's a concern that we're also having on the technology front. So it's something that we are talking about
The
a
good
lot.
news, with a new school building, you get all new technology infrastructure. A new school building would take care of all of this for whatever grade levels we put in new or renovated schoolhouses. The infrastructure.
The
Yep.
infrastructure.
takes care of the
Built-in
infrastructure.
cost to the total price.
The unfortunate thing is, we're not going to have a new school
No.
building next year.
No. But I'm gonna continue to,
But we still need to get
Yeah.
us to that point.
correct. And that's, I appreciate you saying that. That's why somebody might say, well, why are you adding money for a wireless one-to-one computing system? Well, to tell you the truth, for everybody at the second level to be able to access wireless capabilities in our network, that's not a lot. That's basic meat and potatoes so that our students can use the internet in wireless capacities.
Do you have any idea what it would cost to go to one-to-one
I don't.
for all students in Abington? Didn't Norwell just pass?
It would depend on how you implement the program. There's different ways to do it. There are systems that do a lease to own, where families can lease and use, and that solves some of your problems with break fix. Then there are systems who have just given students those iPads. Then there's the software consideration, that you need to load them all with software. Then there's also the consideration where you go out and I'm going to estimate 700 different laptops or iPads. You need to somehow build the infrastructure in place to maintain them, keep them going.
Right, so you have, I think there's really the three pieces. There's the hardware, there's the infrastructure, and then there's the staff. And until you can have all three of those, you can't have one without all three.
But we need to start moving in that direction. So the last item we have here in terms of things that increase the preliminary budget proposal is a suggestion that we put portable classrooms at the Woodsdale. And that would mean 2 portable classrooms behind the Woodsdale School. That would mean that we could move the 4th grade out of the Beaverbrook Elementary School and provide that experience at the Woodsdale Elementary School. And I would invite anybody that doesn't think that this would be a worthwhile expenditure to have lunch with us at the Beaverbrook Elementary School. I'll provide the lunch. I'll provide it out of my own wallet. I will not spend school department funds on it. And you will see just how crowded that building is and what a benefit it would be to our students if we could move the grade 4 as a grade to the Woodsdale School. In order to move the entire grade, though, we need to increase the number of classrooms at the Woodsdale. People will say, well, there are empty classrooms at the Woodsdale. In order to move the entire grade, we would use those classrooms plus those 2 portables behind the school building. They would say, just move that grade to the North School. The North School now is being used. Those rooms are all being used other than 2 rooms for storing records. You wouldn't be able to offer them a decent program at the North School with what all of the things that 4th graders need the way you offered at the Woodsdale School. You wouldn't want to do that to our students, just to pigeonhole them in a building that way.
Define portable classroom?
Portable classroom are those portables that you see in other districts. They're actually decent.
Trailers? Basically.
Trailers, decent. They're actually decent environments for students to be in. The problem with them is they're an interim Band-Aid to get you through until you build a school where you can relieve the space issue at the elementary level. And because in terms of assets, what you own at the end of that is you own a trailer that doesn't have the same resale value as what it is what
So
you put in place.
that's a purchase price, that's not a lease price right there.
The purchase price a lease price over 3 years and the purchase price really weren't that different.
Other than you just have, like you said, 2 trailers that it's either gonna be junk for the town to get rid of, or...
Well, generally, you can sell them used, so you get something back for them, but there's a depreciation.
When you say 2 portable classrooms, does that transition to actually 2 classrooms, or is it 4? I mean,
2
does
classrooms.
So it's one...
Yep. It's 2 classrooms.
1-to-1.
Help me with connected to the building.
Correct, connected to the building through a hallway, through the extension of the hallway of Woodsdale, to go out to those 2 classrooms behind. And by extending the hallway, we are then not required to provide bathrooms in the individual classrooms. So students will be able to access all of the school's facilities both on one side.
So basically, there'd be an annex off the back where the playground is now, where the kids go out back, and there'd just be a modular hallway. Would both of those, and they would be connected to each other
Do you
and
mind
thus
taking
to
the
the school?
Do you mind taking the microphone, Matt? Sorry.
Right. If you're familiar with the layout of the Woodsdale School, behind the Woodsdale School, there's a grassy area between the playground, the blacktop playground, and the school, and that's where these would most likely be placed. We'd have to have engineers look at all of the things that are necessary to connect them, but putting them there would allow us to have all the proper easements and everything else, and have them connected to the building.
And the security hooked up to the building, the alarm.
Right.
Everything that would have the benefits of everything that the building has, and that's why you connect them to the building rather than have them stand alone out in the back so that people put coats on and
Right.
walk out there. And
There'd be a few standalone things like air and heat would be standalone in those classrooms, which actually in buildings that I've worked in that have portable classrooms make them very nice places to work.
And it makes them part of the school if they're connected.
Correct. Yep. They would not seem to you, if you were in there, to be an additional place, and this is where we're sticking this group of kids because we don't have a space for them inside. Yeah. The term portable brings up images that just aren't necessarily
There'll probably be a
correct.
fight to get into the portable classrooms.
Right.
we hope
I would assume, yeah.
Want
Yep.
the AC.
that'd be a good problem to have.
Thanks.
And that's just for the purchase of them, or does that include the installation and everything else?
If that includes,
The hallway and,
And the arming it with the alarm, electrical.
That's a preliminary budget number, because this is an item that would go out to bid. So this is an investigation, that Mr. McCurtain had done, and we had worked with Mr. Lynn in looking at what site costs would be, and electrical costs, and fire alarm, and those types of things. So, that's obviously that's a budget number that was given to us by a few companies and working with our people in town too. So it's a general number for putting 2 portables behind the Woodsdale.
You're comfortable with it, but when you go through the bid process, it's going to change.
Yeah, exactly. I'm very comfortable with that number. It could be a little less, it could be a little bit more.
There could be open ones on the market that would get picked up for less, it could work the opposite way.
In our
Just saying, in
list,
theory.
in our listserv, for business managers, often people will ask, does anyone have portables that they're no longer using that they're looking to sell? And so that is something that's out there as well. So.
And all of this is where we come up with a proposed increase of just over $3 million to bring us to an FY14 preliminary budget of $21,601,619. So that's a large increase for the school department. I realize that. But if I didn't propose in a preliminary budget a restorative plan to bring us to the place with the things and the items that other systems have for our students, I wouldn't be doing my job. I'd be doing our students a disservice. This is the beginning of the process. We'll be out on the budget and finance tour many nights, talking about this with many groups and many people. So. People have questions.
I have a couple of comments, not really questions. I think it's important that, although it seems like a large number, the things we're trying to do are basic. Lower our class sizes, add back classes that are basic classes, foreign language, adding the math, which will be required, adding AP classes, all of the infrastructure. All of those things, and taking away things that our parents and our community play for. I mean, for the boosters to pay for the music programs and the athletic programs year after year after year through their hard work, it's something that we should be able to do on our own, as a community, as a town.
So strategically looking at it, how are we going to afford $3 million to get these programs back?
Yeah, we know that. Well, I think that's what Peter said.
Well, other than going to the
Preliminary.
town, are there any other options out there for tax revenue? Have we looked at consolidation, or have we looked at, possibly regionalizing? Because $3 million, let's be realistic here, that is not going to buy the townspeople for tax increases. If we're, what's the split, 36-64?
It varies depending on who you talk to in the
On
year.
average?
It was 64.
66-34.
66-34.
Okay, so if you were looking for $3 million, that's 16%. 64% of 16% is a 10% increase on the tax base, period. I'm just saying. Realistically looking at it, I want to be there, but looking at how we're going to get the money, I don't think we can sustain a program.
What's interesting is you mentioned Hull earlier in the evening, which is a great thing to, because if we had this $3 million, we'd still be spending less than Hull spends per pupil.
But do we have breakdowns of where they get their money, tax base versus, I don't know.
Yeah, we can do that.
Tax base, fund based, and everything like that, but.
I guess the point I'm making is that although this is a big number, it's really not, and I know Abington's going to struggle with funding, and we're going to go through a process now of prioritizing these things so that when we don't get to $3 million, we know what we want to get first.
My concern
But it's not pie in the sky, it's not extravagant.
Well, the positions aren't pie in the sky, but the money's pie in the sky. You know, looking at it, you know, we struggled last year to get $400,000. We tried to get another $200,000, and that didn't even go through. Now we have a funding gap of $400,000 plus an increase in salaries of $300,000. So even before we look at anything, we have a $700,000 increase. Then throw another $300,000 for special ed. You're looking at $1 million without from an increase of last year. We got. Let's look at it realistically. You know, everybody's taxes went up 2%. Everybody's paying more. My water bill came in. I'm paying more and everything else. I'm just putting a realistic view on this. I know I'd love to have this. You know, maybe we do. We got a building project going on right now too. Obviously, you know, Matt, we have needs for our students, you know, trying to get them all where they belong. We got a lot of things pending right now. Personally, I think it's unsustainable, money-wise. I think we have to look at potentially regionalizing to get these resources at the high school and middle school level. That's the only way I see it, because there's cost savings and administration. You know, if we had a middle and, you know, high school with, I'm going to throw 2 names out there, and you guys are probably going to, Holbrook and Avon. You know, they're struggling with brand new schools. Imagine, you know, if cost share of a new school, high school with 2 other towns, it's not going to be a $50 million bill, but it's something that we could potentially get through minimal cost. The state would look at it going, I don't have to build 3 new schools now. I have 1 school that's going to be regionalized. Our funding increases cost share. You know, we have the ability probably at that point, you know, to add teachers, you know, AP programs. Still, with the addition of Avon and Holbrook, the majority of students are going to be Abington, you know, even with the combination of those 2. You know, I'm just throwing it out there. You know, all we seem to do is throw money out there, you know, saying we need more money, but we got to look outside the.
We do need more money.
We absolutely do.
And I think to say it's unrealistic.
$3 million is unrealistic. Wake up.
But at some point, Tom, we have to, as a community, support the education. Yes, it's a large. How can you say the positions aren't unrealistic, but the money is? You can't have one without the other.
Well, unrealistic for the town to fund at this point.
Well, and I think Peter started this thing with, this is a very preliminary. We know it's going to be cut, but to not ask what
Oh,
is
we definitely
right
got to ask, but I think we
for
need
it.
to look at other avenues too. You know, every year it's coming. We need, you know, our class sizes or our enrollment is decreasing slightly, but it is. It's not what it used to be 15 years ago. You know, I wish there was an easy way. You know, there is no easy way. You know, I want the best for our students, but I also don't want to cripple, you know, our elderly in town by saying, yeah, well, you're going to have a 10% tax increase that can, you know, they're on a fixed income. They get higher taxes now. Now they get higher everything. You know, it's a tough cookie to break, but I think we got to think outside the box. You know, strategically think, not just every year go to the town. We need more money, yeah, because we need more teachers. Yeah, we know that, but there's got to be other solutions. I'll get off my soapbox.
You know, Tom, even if regionalization were something that would be a possibility, it wouldn't solve this problem that we're looking at this year. Regionalization takes years and years.
It does, but
To
we
come about.
can't just kick it down the road,
And
you
this
know.
is an immediate problem. And it really is a problem because we're looking at numbers in our elementary school that are higher than anywhere in the country, not just the state. And this needs to be taken care of now. Because for every gap in education you have on the elementary level, you have to put in remedial
Oh, yeah, it just
work,
cascades,
which
the
is
snowball
much more
effect.
expensive when you hit middle school and high school. So these are issues that we need to deal with immediately. Sure, we need to work for long-range fiscal solutions down the road, regardless of what they are. But we still have the problems that we're facing right now.
Absolutely.
And we need to deal with them now. Okay, that's my soapbox.
Who's next?
I don't want to get up.
Sorry.
So if there's questions or further discussion, I'll wait. But Absent that, I'd request a motion to refer the preliminary budget to the proposal to the Business Finance Subcommittee.
I'll make that motion to refer the FY 2014 preliminary school budget proposal to the Business and Finance Subcommittee. Tom?
I'll second.
I'm sorry, Mike and Tom, same.
Wow, you don't want to be caught with me.
Okay, so, and then we could just, if that's been approved now, we can move to the
So
next motion.
do we have a
Full-
vote
All in favor?
to refer that to the Budget and Finance Subcommittee?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I'd ask for someone to please consider making a motion to submit to the annual town meeting warrant a proposal for the FY14 budget, a figure of $21,601,619 as the amount requested for the school department's operational budget. We have to make this proposal this early to keep in line with the town charter and the schedule of the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen. Although we know there'll
This
be
is a
those
preliminary.
deliberations, this is a
Yes.
preliminary submission.
A motion for that?
Make-
Kathy motion. Second? All in favor? Right.
Next item is a motion to submit for the annual town meeting a warrant proposal figure of $14,000. We haven't talked about this, so maybe spend a moment talking about it, and then I'll ask people to consider it. We are required to bus students to our non-resident vocational school at Norfolk Agricultural, and we partner with 7 different districts in the South Shore to do that. We save quite a bit of money doing that. Felicia runs that for the South Shore, and so that amount of money is $14,000. If we did this on our own, it would probably cost us 60 or 70.
And is that transportation just to the Ag, or is for the Aggie and the VOTEC?
Nope.
That's the
Just for
that's the
Aggie?
vocational at the
Yeah.
Aggie. Yep.
So
That's
that's what
what it is.
Tech does their own.
All
Right.
transportation, okay.
That's the total amount for the year?
Correct.
Our portion.
Our
portion.
portion.
Okay, what was it last year? Do you know?
14,000
Oh,
last
okay,
year.
so it's
The,
11.
the year before, or the year before that, it was 7,000, but we
7,000.
had to add an additional bus. So that's why it doubled.
Because of the increase of,
There was one, now there's 2 buses. That's why it doubled.
I'll
So
make
we'd
the motion.
anticipate that would remain probably the same, because the students there are gonna remain there.
Well, and this is
Even if
also
we
districts
had-
from other, this is also students from other districts too, also
Are
ride
in-
that bus, we share
Right,
with them,
right.
right?
So in another few years, I mean, I'm anticipating next year and the following year to be 2 buses. By the numbers that I have received from the other districts, I can project out at least next year, maybe, and then it may go back down to 1 bus. But it depends what happens in other communities as well.
So I'd ask if someone would consider making the motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Mike, second by Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
This next one is an account that we need to submit for annually so that we can collect a tuition fee for the full-day kindergarten and for the preschool program, for the part-day preschool program at the Center Elementary School. That sets up a revolving fund where we collect this money, and then it helps defray the cost of the program at the center school. So this motion would be to submit for the annual town meeting a warrant article seeking the authority granted under MGL Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half to continue a revolving fund for the purpose of providing preschool and full-day kindergarten instruction to be funded by tuition collection. No more than $150,000 shall be expended from this fund during the fiscal year 2014. School committee or their designees shall be authorized to expend from this fund or act on anything relative thereto.
That dollar amount's enough? Okay. I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
The next one is there are fines levied against businesses in Abington which violate the state local tobacco control laws. Then those fines are put into a revolving account that we need to get approval for its existence every year under Chapter 44, Section 53.5. And then we spend that money as we can on substance abuse, smoking cessation programs that are proactive educational programs for our students pre-K through 12. So I'd ask for a motion to submit to the annual town meeting an article to continue the revolving account in accordance with MGL Chapter 44, Section 53E.5, said account to be funded by the fines levied against tobacco businesses, which violate the state or local tobacco control laws, bylaws, and regulations, to be expanded by the Abington School Department to fund substance abuse prevention programs not to exceed $8,000 for the ensuing fiscal year, or take any other action relative thereto.
Make a motion. Mike, second. Ava?
Going back under my agenda items, I missed one because we tried to time this for the public session on the budget. So if I could, I'd like to go back just under other matters to one item that I had. Under information on school choice for grade 9 students for the 2013-14 school year. This is really informational for you. Every year in Massachusetts, if you don't opt out of school choice, you're in it. Excuse me. Several years ago, we elected to opt in for grade 9 students. I would suggest that we continue to do that for grade 9 only. I'm not going to ask for you to vote on that tonight because we're required, Teresa, help me out, I believe we're required to have a public session on this. So on the January 22nd evening, 29th, sorry, on the evening of the 29th, I'll be asking you to consider this. I'd ask the materials in here that describe the program are in your packet. It'd be something that I'd want to continue for those people that might be watching on cable. The reason we started in grade 9 is because we don't have room at the elementary level and at the middle school level for this. If we make a commitment to someone in grade 9, we carry them through graduation. We're committed to them. These are students that would come from other districts to receive their education here in Abington. The application materials, the press releases are all in your packet that students get and would apply for.
How many students do we have now?
We currently have 2 at Abington High School.
In their communities, pay a stipend to our community.
Through the state.
Yeah.
The money follows the students from the state.
What grade are they in? Are they ninth graders? Are they new?
High
Or are they?
High school.
Are they brand new
I
this year?
believe one 10 and one is 10 and one is 9. We had an application from last year that carried over.
Okay.
So 9 moved up to 10, moved to 9.
There are actually
I think we
students
had
that
it for some
were,
reason.
there were actually students that were living in Abington that moved out of Abington and wanted to maintain
Okay.
their education in Abington, and that's how that happened.
Okay. Makes sense.
There's no motion.
No, nothing. Just wanted to make sure I talked about it this evening so that the committee was informed. Under dates to remember, Monday, January 1st is Martin Luther King Day. All school offices and buildings are closed. Tuesday, January 29th is that regular school committee meeting at 7 p.m. Friday, February 1st, there's an in-service early release day for our students. Tuesday, February 5th, the Green Wave Boosters meeting at Abington High School at 7 p.m. Tuesday, February 12th, the Abington Music Parents meeting at Abington High School at 7 p.m. Monday, February 18th, through that Friday, the 22nd, there's a winter vacation period in February. And on February 18th, we have President's Day. All school offices and school buildings will be closed.
We're going to move on to the report of subcommittees, and we have a report on the Mass Joint Conference resolution vote that Kathy attended for Abington.
Yes. I want to apologize first for all my coughing. I hope you could hear everything while I was doing that. I had the opportunity to represent the school committee on November 7th through 9th at the conference, which was a wonderful opportunity. Outside of all of the workshops I was able to go to, it also provided me with an opportunity to actually communicate with other school committee members from across the state and superintendents. and I did have an opportunity to meet with the two heads of the Joint Education Committee for the state, Representative Page and Senator Sonia Chang Diaz, and made sure I let them know how our town was dealing with the finances we needed for education. But I also represented the school at the discussion on the resolutions that were to be presented, and all of you gave me your wishes and how you wanted me to vote. All of the resolutions did pass, some with some editing changes, some with a lot of discussion. All of the resolutions with the amended wording and any of the changes are online, as well as the votes. Most of them were unanimous. Resolution 1 was to establish a special commission of the legislature for the study of mandated reports and data submissions for school districts, which passed unanimously with some revision. In the language only, not the intent of it. And that costs all school systems a great deal of money every year when you take a look at the man hours that have to go into it. Another resolution, number 2, is for the modification of the circuit breaker formula. A lot of what we've talked about today. And the resolution was to look to raise the circuit breaker, and I could read through the whole formula, but that also passed unanimously. And basically what happens is the MASC will lobby or put forth information, to try to put these things through. Resolution 3 was on health insurance coverage for medically necessary treatment in school, which also passed unanimously. Resolution 4 was funding for the educator evaluation system, which is another one of those unfunded mandates from the state. So they're pushing to get it funded. Again, that passed unanimously. One that I found very interesting and found the discussion very interesting, Resolution 5, relative to an advocacy study. Part of our funding is the foundation budget that the schools are required to meet. And this is a study to look at whether the foundation budget, as it's set by the state right now, actually covers what's being done in education. And that foundation be adjusted after the adequacy study would take place. So it would be kind of interesting to see how that would come out. In speaking to the heads of the education committee, basically it seems that most people feel that the reason why this hasn't been studied recently is because the foundation budget is very inadequate to meet the needs, which is part of that funding problem that we've been looking at, Tom.
For everybody.
You know, every town has to meet the foundation budget, but the foundation budget doesn't fairly represent what's needed to actually educate the students. So, and Resolution 6 was the one that was probably most highly controversial, which kind of surprised me. But as we know, there are a lot of charter schools within the Commonwealth. And when students leave a district to go to a charter school, the cost to pay for that student's education comes from the community they live in. And basically, the way boards of charter schools are set up right now, the electorate within the communities that are sending these students to the charter school actually don't have a voice on the board. So this was set forth so that the members to the boards for the charter schools would have to be appointed or elected from the boards that were in the community, which seemed fairly reasonable to me, but it created a lot of discussion. It did pass. It's the only resolution that did not pass unanimously. And the vote on it was 66 in favor, 11 opposed, and 11 abstentions. But if this were actually able to be put into law, then at least a town that was sending students to the charter school would have a representative to speak for them, which would be a change. But I appreciate having the opportunity to represent the board there, and it was a very interesting meeting. There were numerous other things I would like to go through, but with the time constraints this evening, it probably wouldn't be worthwhile.
Thank you, Kathy, for going and representing us. Report of the Assistant Superintendent for People Personnel Services. Do we have any items this evening? I'll move on to the report of the Assistant Superintendent for Business and Finance.
I do have items this morning. Feel like this morning. The first item I have for you is the Finance and District Operations Goal from our Strategic Action Plan. This was completed last year, adopted at the end of the year, so this is the first update on the status for the Finance and District Operations Goal. The first strategic goal, or the strategic goal, is to obtain and reasonably manage equitable, predictable, and sustainable funding for educational programs, facilities, and operations. Apropos for this evening. The first strategic objective is to collaborate with community, local, state, and federal officials to obtain sustainable and predictable financial support. And if you remember, there's a number of action steps that that make up the strategic that make up the action steps for the objective. And I won't read for you everything, but I'll summarize. In this one, it talks about collaborating with community, local, state, and federal officials, and there's such things as membership in organizations, inviting local and state representatives to meetings, meet with local community groups such as Rotary Lions, senior citizens, and all of those things are being done at some level, at some time that's appropriate. For example, during the budget time, we'll be meeting with different groups. We'll be inviting, as we get information around state funding, we'll be inviting people here, and we'll be invited to meetings to speak on the budget and the budget proposals. I do. Both Peter and I meet weekly with the town finance team to talk about the finances and the needs of both the town and the school. The second strategic objective is to provide transparency and encourage community participation in the budgetary process. And that began tonight with our budget presentation and our budget packet that will tomorrow morning be delivered to the Finance Committee, Board of Selectmen, Town Manager, and the Town Finance Team. And it will also be available on our website, and people will be able to look at our documents and ask questions around our budget process and proposal. Yes.
So everybody gets a line-by-line budget analysis by school.
Yep.
A line-by-line budget spreadsheet.
There's the budget packet itself included in there. A lot of times we get questions throughout the springtime while we're talking about the budget, and much of that information, not that we don't want to answer those questions, but much of that information can be found in here. For example, our budget history. Last year to this year, our budget went up $780,000. Where were we 5 years ago, 10 years ago? How much has it increased? Our class size information is in here. Our staffing levels are in here. So, and a line by line by school budget for this current year, FY13, where we are today, FY13, and our FY14 proposal. The third let me just make sure I'm good with the third strategic objective is to plan and secure funding through traditional and alternative sources in order to provide state-of-the-art facilities, infrastructure, technology, and other capital projects. One of the foci of this particular objective was to look at grant type activities. We have been working most closely with North River Collaborative in terms of finding grants and writing grants, and actually been awarded a number of grants along with other communities in North River Collaborative. The AEF mini grant program continues to be a large source of mini grants for the Abington Public Schools. Approximately $25,000 in AEF mini grants were funded this year to different staff members who have written proposals to the AEF and have been awarded by them. In addition, and I think it's important to again reiterate, PTOs, boosters, music parents are funding extracurricular activities that historically have been in our budget and over the last few years have not been in our budget, such as athletics, music tutors. And the final strategic objective is to provide relevant professional development in the area of technology to maximize data management and business continuity. And at this time, neither of those steps have been completed. The first action step is to conduct a needs assessment and provide appropriate training as it relates to data management and business continuity. We have been looking at data in terms of data teams in the school looking at data, but not in terms of the overall management as a district of our data itself. And provide online self-paced training opportunities in the area of data management and business continuity through technology services. And that's another one that has not been completed at this time. But this is a plan that goes out to 2020, so I don't think it would be necessarily expected that all of these things would have been completed in the last 5 months, 4 or 5 months. So we're on our way, though.
Anyone have any questions for Felicia? Looking for a motion to approve the Finance and District Operations Action Plan as presented.
I'll second.
Mike, John, all in favor? Aye.
All right, on December 7th, you received a memo from me regarding the 9C cuts that Governor Patrick had proposed to this current year's budget. And the one that directly impacted the school department is the cut to our circuit breaker reimbursement. We had anticipated a 75% circuit breaker reimbursement. The governor proposed cutting that by 5%. So that, coupled with a decrease in the amount of circuit breaker that we were actually allocated once it was audited, if you will. We are anticipating about an $85,000 decrease in the circuit breaker reimbursement this year. A couple of things about that. That's an anticipated number. It could be more, it could be less. There's a pot of money that the state uses and allocates for circuit breaker, and part of that money is set aside for what they call extraordinary relief. If that's not used, it goes back into funding portions of the circuit breaker for cities and towns. So this isn't a hard, fast number, if you will. At this point, we froze our budget in September, so that if something like this were to happen, we may be able to weather a reduction of $85,000. It's a lot of money, and it's only January, so depending where such things as special education placements go, the weather, what the weather looks like, other kind of unanticipated expenses, then, so it's early, it's January, it's important that we know about this. We've talked to the town also about this, so it's not a surprise to anybody that, that there is this reduction, and we're in January. It's hard for me to say whether we'll need additional funds from the town or not, for this. Yes.
Can
You
I
may.
just comment on that for a moment?
Yep.
So I want to make sure that we're open about this. When we say there's a budget freeze, it's been more of a frost.
Yes.
Because there are times when you have to hire a paraprofessional to meet the needs of a student, or
Someone
we've been-
leaves.
We've been required to provide professional development, to maintain programs and services to students that we have to maintain. So we've cut way back on the amount of professional development, but we have taken advantage of, in particular, North River Collaborative's professional development offering. We are still sending people to that. We're still paying for those people to go, and we are still paying for substitutes, because that's the prudent and the right thing to do. But we implemented that frost on the budget and discretionary spending early in the year, just because we knew it would be a tight budget year. We budgeted responsibly but aggressively to get the number of contracts we had to settled, and to and not have to go back to the town to look for more money. So I think what you mean by when you're saying depending on the weather, if it's a really cold winter, and so far we're not in a cold winter.
Without a lot of snow.
Without a lot of snow, that helps the heating bill. But if the heating bill goes up, and it's just to illustrate a point, special education placements, students move into the district that we didn't anticipate, or leave our district in terms of needing out-of-district placements, we don't have a cushion, or we don't have an encumbrance to handle those needs. And so we want to be very open about that and clear about that now. And this is another item that we're watching very carefully because of the governor's cuts to circuit breaker. Thanks.
And again, it may be less than this in the end, and it may be, I don't think it'll be more than this, but it could be less.
Okay, so Felicia, here's the
Yes.
million-dollar question.
Yes.
Normal year, we have this hit. If we project out, where do we stand right now?
Well, it's also been a funny year in terms of federal grants. We have actually not received one of our we have the funding commitment for one of our grants, we just haven't received it. We're supposed to be receiving it actually the 16th of January. If I were to say today, with the things that we've been put in place in September, I think we'll be okay. But that's we're at January 8th.
And it can change tomorrow morning.
It makes me very nervous to even say that on January 8th, because we don't have extra room, we don't have a cushion in our budget. We don't have,
No, but there's some point too where you can say, yeah, we're not gonna make it, you know.
right, I'm not there yet.
Okay, that's
Yep.
all the feeling I wanted to get.
Yep, we're not there.
Okay.
And again, it's January. We could have, we could have people on extended medical leaves. We could have, I mean, there's a lot of, or not, so there are things that, I'm not going to the town yet to say we need $85,000, but I'm not confident to say that we won't.
Okay, well, that's
Is that fair?
I was looking for it.
How about that for a non-answer answer? So that was informational, but it's important to talk about that because we can't just sustain an $85,000 reduction to our budget. I mean, that's not.
You sound like somebody who's worried about unanticipated occurrences, like a roof leak at the Paul K. Smith room.
Yeah.
That needs to be remediated, or you don't have any large space for students at your high school, and you gotta find a way to fix it. We found a way to do it, but there's no way to anticipate that was gonna happen.
3 large snowstorms on Sundays that we have to bring in custodians overtime to clean the buildings, as opposed to a Tuesday afternoon snowstorm that we have people here. I mean, those are the things that are unanticipated, really, so.
Which we'd like to have a cushion for,
Yeah.
but we don't, for obvious reasons.
Yeah, we've all seen the budget board in your room where we're cutting toners and everything else, so
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
why I'm asking the question.
But then when I get a phone call from one of the schools that all three of their copy machines are inoperable in January, there isn't a choice but to buy a copy machine. I mean, you can't operate a school without, but that has to come from someplace else. So then when Dibna comes and says, what about professional development in March? And I say, no, I can't do it.
She does that.
I just had to get a copy machine. I mean, those are the things that we're constantly juggling, or textbooks, or, you know, there's all those things that I've become pretty good at saying no. All right, so I don't think there's no motion required for that. Feasibility study update. We've had a busy last month in terms of the feasibility study. However, we haven't started the actual feasibility study. There's been two subcommittees that have been very busy. The first one has been the communication subcommittee that has met quite regularly. They have a website that's up. It's live now. It's the
asbc.us.
You want to say that again?
The website for the Abington School Building Committee is asbc.us. It's linked to the town, it's linked to the school department website.
And that's a website that will be evolving, and as more information, all information will go onto there. There's a frequently asked question page that we encourage people to ask questions. We'll put answers onto that page. The second subcommittee is the designer selection subcommittee. We have an owner's project manager on board. That's Knight, Baggy, and Anderson out of Boston, and we are now in the process of hiring a designer architect that will actually conduct, in collaboration with the town of Abington, the feasibility study. We actually went today. Richard Testa, the chairman of the school building committee, Roger Bodie, who's a member, resident and a member of the school building committee, Peter, myself, to the school building authority for the first round of our designer selection with what's called the designer selection panel with the school building authority. 3 firms were selected to be invited back for interviews. So we'll have interviews on January 22nd, and at that point, the designer will be selected. And it's a pretty intense process, if you will. There's 16 members of the designer selection board, 3 of which are from the town of Abington. Peter, Richard Testa, and Roger Bodie were the 3 voting members. So they have 3 out of the 16 votes on that panel in terms of the selection of the designer architect. The 3 that are being interviewed were actually the designer selection subcommittees. They were our 3 preferred options, so we're happy about that. So by the next meeting, we'll have a designer, yes.
Sorry. But even to get to that point where we had 3 votes, we had a subcommittee with multiple members on it, and we had a scoring rubric. We reviewed all of the proposals just to get to that point.
Right, there were 2 significant meetings reviewing all. We had 7 proposals that were submitted, and they were all reviewed and categorized.
It's a rigorous process.
And my last item is the recyclable materials policy. And I just want to give you a tiny bit of background. On November 15th, the Department of Environmental Protection, DEP, awarded the town of Abington with a grant. It was a 3-part grant. $61,000 were awarded to the town for to offset the cost of the recycling carts. There was $2,300 for education materials, and the school department was awarded $3,803 for school recycling equipment. part of the requirements for DEP is that the school department have a recyclable materials policy, and they provided us with the template for that. And just to highlight a couple of the things in it, in addition to the town's recycling policy, I mean, I think that's the other part, is we come under the umbrella of the town that we're required to recycle. And the Abington Public Schools will recycle materials that would otherwise become waste, including paper, cardboard, bottles, and cans from throughout the school buildings and grounds. To ensure that, and I'm just highlighting, to ensure the success in the district's recycling efforts, the following areas will be adopted. All district personnel are expected to support recycling efforts throughout the schools, and teachers are encouraged to include educational lessons on recycling in the curriculum where appropriate. Oh, and the last one is the Abington Public Schools and the Abington School Committee are committed to the successful implementation of a materials recycling program in the Abington Public Schools. This will be submitted along with a kind of a checklist and what do they call it, a project milestone in terms of when we will have the equipment in the schools, and we are already recycling. We have classroom recycling, we have green teams, we're trying to increase and improve the recycling efforts in the cafeterias, which have become a little more of a challenge, really because we have one custodian in the cafeteria doing a lot of other things besides watching the trash and the recycling bins. So
Try helping 170 second graders recycle all at once.
Ask Miss Kay.
How many shifts?
Ask Miss Kay how that works. So it's become, it is a challenge, especially in the cafeterias, but the custodians have been doing a wonderful job, the administrators have been doing a wonderful job, the lunch aides have really, it's become, I think it will continue to become part of the culture of the schools. And I think that was,
Need a motion.
yeah, I need you to adopt if you feel comfortable adopting the policy.
Everyone?
Approve the recycling
A
policy.
motion to approve the recyclable material policy as presented.
Make the motion.
Mike, second. Kathy? All in favor?
One other piece and then I'm done, I promise. It's part of recycling. You may have noticed in each of the school parking lots, except the Frollo, there are large white bins for clothing, or for textile recycling. And the only reason there's one at the Frollo is just there isn't any room there. But we get $100, or the school PTOs will be receiving $100 for each ton of materials that are dropped off in those bins. They'll take anything, shoes, belts, socks? Pillows, bedding, anything. There's one in North School, there's one at the high school parking lot, 2 at Beaver Brook, 1 at Woodsdale. And we're in partnership with Bay State Textiles, and please use those bins.
Thank you.
I have nothing else.
Thank you. New business establishing next school committee meeting date, Tuesday, January 29th, 2013. And if we can have a motion to approve all accounts as presented or amended. Ellen, second.
Second.
Kathy, all in favor? And then we're going to take by, you have more?
I have a couple of informational
sorry.
items if I could, I promise.
Page to remember.
I did those.
We did them.
Yeah, earlier.
We did.
Mike didn't remember.
It's my pleasure to just highlight that Steve Shannon has communicated with me that Vicki Lynch has once again by audition been accepted as a singer in the Southeastern Massachusetts District Chorus. That festival will take place at Barnstable High School on January 11th and 12th. Also, I'd like to recognize that Steve Moore, our athletic director, was named the District C Ted Damco Athletic Director of the Year. And then also just highlight our school committee and administrative congratulations to the Abington High School football team for the 2012 Eastern Massachusetts Division IV Super Bowl Championship. is obviously an exciting season for our high school football players and all of the fans. Actually happened on a snowy day. It was kind of nice to old school football in the snow. Also want to highlight correspondence, from our Care Center advisors at the Woodsdale School. The Care Center students and the teachers at the Woodsdale raised $2,127 for Tuckerton Elementary School in New Jersey, who were victims of the superstorm. I don't know what to call it anymore, Frankenstorm, superstorm, the storm that hit the United States. Seems like forever ago now at this point, but certainly they're still suffering from the repercussions. And then also wanted to highlight to you correspondence from Dr. Gonzalez and Patricia Flommer, English teachers at Abington High School, that Andrew Johnson and Ian McLeod both placed among the highest scorers of 159 ninth graders in the entire country. They're among the 159 of more than 58,000 students from across the country and 4 foreign nations in the Word Right Challenge. We want to congratulate them. And then just highlight to you, there is an executive summary under informational about the Southeast Technology Network Curriculum Center grant that Abington is the lead participant in through North River Collaborative to collaborate on curriculum development online and share in the resources through North River Collaborative of other districts as we all update the curriculum and build infrastructure around consolidating those functions in school systems. That's all I have.
We need a vote to move into executive session for purpose of discussing collective bargaining strategies with the educational support personnel and not to return to public session. Roll call vote. Mike? Yes. Ellen, yes.
Aye.
Kathy? Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job.